hearing that ringing sound, Jordan? That is it. All right, here we go. And yeah, this definitely sounds like that Black Beatles song. Yep, Dogecoin mooning. Got that utility. Give me 1 second, Jordan. I'm dead today. Let me grab a Red Bull. All right, let's go. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo.com NBA Deeper Dive. That's right. 4-game Thursday slate with 2 pieces of news that could absolutely wipe everything out that we've talked about. Today's show, of course, sponsored by Jock Market. I'm Dave Loughran at Lafayette_D on Twitter, joined by Adam, hungover Scherer at ShipMyMoney DFS. How you feeling, bro?
Been better.
Yeah, you trying to hydrate?
Yeah. I got some water, so doing a little bit better. Got a nice nap in.
I mean, was it one of those hangovers where you can't even drink water, or were you're good to get it down?
Yeah, I'm okay to get it down. It's more I just don't feel like going to get it.
So you got to go. I told you, you go on Amazon, you get like an 80 pack of those, like not emergency, but what is it? It's you know, the things that keep you from getting hungover. Well, it's Pedialyte, but it's a knockoff brand, and you know, for grown-ups. I can't remember what it's called, but whatever. They're wonderful. You drink them before or the night of drinking, you wake up feeling much, much better the morning after, because
my problem is I forget to do anything like that.
Yeah, well, you forgot to eat as well, I believe.
Yeah, that didn't help either.
Yeah, so anyway, we're here. We're making things happen. And Karan says it's not a hangover if you can drink water. Yeah, you're not wrong. Apparently, by the way, there's like 1,000 different ones of these because everyone's just throwing. None of those are the ones I'm talking about. There's Drip Drop, and then there's another one that I'm thinking of that I just someone will get it. Someone will get it, and I'll shout them out because, well, you know. And Kay Carver, you're right. We don't need to promote Amazon, but the truth is, it's just so easy that how can you? I'm a simple man, Adam, and if they can get it here by tomorrow, you know. I'd support a small business, but that means I got to drive 50 minutes to get anywhere. They're all closed. All right. So we're happy to have you guys with us. Now that that's out of the way, we got an hour. So don't worry if we get off topic. We won't. But in the event that we do, we got plenty of time to cover these 4 games. And the big news, Adam, before we get into all of these games one by one, is we're waiting on Giannis. We're waiting on Trey Young. It's 2 huge pieces because right now there's no real legitimately good value. We can look to guys like Whiteside. Hopefully he gets, 20 plus minutes again. But then you're talking about Kent Bazemore and Kevin Huerter and just some guys that I'd really prefer not to pay more than I should be paying for them just because it's a bad slate.
Yeah, and those guys aren't even really that cheap anymore because they've been, reasonable plays. So, the Giannis news obviously makes a huge difference. Trae Young news, Robert Williams is questionable as well for Boston. But yeah, that obviously is going to change the entire slate because there's outside of the Kings centers, basically, there's not like cheap value anywhere.
Yes, Brent, liquid IV. Nailed it. Thank you, sir. Yeah, have you ever drank to get rid of a hangover? Or are you not at that stage of your life yet where you're willing to do that?
I mean, when I bartended when I was younger, I would.
Like, would you rip a shot or would you Bloody Mary it?
Normally just beer normally.
Oh, okay. I've had a couple where I woke up and just like ripped a couple shots of Jameson because I had to go somewhere. It didn't end well. Milwaukee and Atlanta. Oh, by the way, before we get there, hit that thumbs up. Looks like a lot of you guys have already done that. Much appreciated for all of you that jump in. The first thing you do is hit that thumbs up, meaning you're probably already subscribed to the channel. If you're not, though, hit that subscribe. It's greatly appreciated, and it makes it so every single day we can keep growing this channel and continue to put out the best free content around, continue to bring on great new analysts, great new hosts, to make this the best DFS place on the YouTube. So all of that, greatly appreciated. We dive into it right now with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks. Waiting on Giannis is huge right now. The Bucks are 4-point favorites. Giannis and Dante DiVincenzo are both questionable here. So here's how I see it, and then I'll toss it over to you. Giannis did practice in full earlier this week, and then he was ruled out, I believe, yesterday, right? Because they had that afternoon game that wasn't on the main slate. He was ruled out yesterday. I think it's a very realistic possibility that he plays. If we don't get any word from Budenholzer that he's going to be limited and everyone just assumes he is and he's expensive on this slate and his ownership really comes in around 14 or 16% on DraftKings where it stands right now, man, how willing are you to say, let me pay up to, this sounds crazy because there's only 4 games. How willing are you to say, let me pay up to be contrarian for someone like Giannis Antetokounmpo who averages almost 1 3/4 fantasy points per minute?
Yeah, I mean, if he's in and we don't get word that he's limited, I think it's a really appealing strategy. I mean, you look at the ownership right now. We have Steph Curry projected to be the highest owned player on the slate at $200 less than Giannis on DraftKings, getting like 10 points more ownership. Giannis with a 34% chance of being in the optimal, Steph at 20 or 29%. So if the ownership does hold there, maybe once if he's confirmed in, the final ownership update has more ownership going to Giannis. But I think that it's not going to be that easy to get him into lineups necessarily because of the lack of value. But if everyone's going to play Curry, there's no real reason that, Curry doesn't lose to Giannis a high percentage of the time here.
That's where I'm at as well. So wait, did you say that the Giannis doesn't lose to Curry a high percentage of the time?
I'm saying like they project similarly.
Right.
It's kind of a coin flip between the two of them. So I don't think that Curry should be getting drastically more ownership than Giannis.
No, neither do I. And plus, he's doing the blowouts himself recently. It's just Curry's been so good that he only needs to play 29, 30 minutes because of how he's played. We'll get there in the very next game, but Curry's been on an absolute tear lately. The Giannis news is just so big, though, because right now there's not a lot of value anywhere. If Giannis doesn't play, let's assume for a moment that DiVincenzo is active and Giannis is out because, again, he practiced Tuesday but didn't play yesterday despite it being a full participant in practice the day before. So I'm not locking him in on the second of a back-to-back. Anyway, if he doesn't play, are we willing to pay the premiums for guys like Holiday and Middleton? What do you do with a guy like Bobby Portis, whose minutes have come down recently despite Giannis missing 6 straight games? Floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, if Giannis is out, obviously we know there's a lot of stats to go around because he scores, he rebounds, he gets assists. The problem, like you said, is these guys are starting to be priced up because he's missed multiple games recently. So, like, you obviously still can look to Middleton. You still can look to Drew. Drew, in particular, has been great without Giannis this year. But and Middleton, certainly is disappointed in his share of games. But both guys should benefit with him out. Portis gets difficult to get to because he's up to 6,800 on DraftKings. Assuming he does get the start, he played 25 minutes yesterday, didn't play much in the fourth quarter of a blowout. So you could still get, 26 to 30 minutes from Portis, but he's getting to a price point where it's pretty tough to get to, I think. So if Giannis is out, I think it's mostly Holiday and then behind him, Middleton, where I'd be going.
Okay. Would you look towards DiVincenzo though, given that we don't have a ton of value right now, and it's not like value would open up in a big way if Giannis is out. It would just open up a lot more like upper mid range or lower high price players in Drew and Middleton. Where would DiVincenzo fall into the equation?
Just sort of as a secondary piece. Like I don't think that, or he's expensive enough where I wouldn't be too excited about getting to him. He obviously there's more shots to go around for him with Giannis out as well, but he's still going to take a backseat to Middleton. He's still going to take a backseat to Holiday. Portis is a higher usage guy as well. So DiVincenzo isn't someone that I'd be super excited about getting to, kind of in the same boat as Brook Lopez, where like they look a little bit better just because there's more stats to go around, but I don't expect him to get the same bump that guys like Middleton or Holiday do.
All right, so flip it back around for a second. If Giannis does play, is there anyone else you're interested in Milwaukee?
I don't think so. I mean, they're not fully priced for him to be out, but they're pretty close to it. And so with him being in, they're kind of naturally overpriced. Obviously Middleton and Holiday are still capable of having big games if Giannis is in, but the chances of that happening go down a lot. So I think you would need them to be at pretty low ownership to get to these price points with Giannis in.
On the Atlanta side, this is another spot. Both big names on this slate that we're waiting on. The two big ones that are actually questionable right now. Robert Williams is kind of significant too, and we'll get there. Both of them are in the 7:30 game, so that's pretty helpful. Trey Young was expected by his GM to play last game, so last time I listened to that, he ended up sitting out, and you get pretty obvious chalk situation with someone like Brandon Goodwin. He's played 37 minutes in back-to-back games now, Adam, and he's only up to 4,500. I get that we liked him a whole lot at minimum salary and 3,500 on DraftKings, but 4,500 is not all that outrageous for a guy that if Trey sits is going to play close to 40 minutes again. Yeah,
not at all. Especially, again, we keep harping on it, but it's a 4-game slate where there's pretty limited value. So, on some slates, you'd have a bunch of, $3K, $3,500 guys that maybe look similar or a little bit better than Goodwin, but you don't really have much of that on the slate. So I think that, if Young is out, like you said, you're getting huge minutes from Goodwin in each of the last 2 games he's missed. And if he's going to play 36 plus minutes, he doesn't have to be the best fantasy producer. He's averaged, I'm trying to pull it up now, but I think he's around 0.75, 0.8 fantasy points per minute. Like that's plenty if he's playing that many minutes after salary.
Yeah, I don't see any reason not to get there. Would he not immediately become the best option on the slate?
Definitely one of them. And he's a 0.81 DraftKings points per minute in 5 games without Young this year, 0.87 DraftKings points per minute in 3 starts. And he's averaged 34.1 minutes per game in those starts, obviously exceeded that in each of his last 2.
Looking at Bogdan Bogdanović too, I mean, he's been getting a ton of minutes. I mean, you're looking at back-to-back 40-plus minute games in regulation, and he's having the best stretch of his tenure with the Atlanta Hawks. There's no doubt about that, playing much better, even in some games with Trey Young. What do you think of Bogdanović with and without Trey Young today? I want to hit on both scenarios since we only have 4 games.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's fine if Young is in, but he is priced up to where it starts to get kind of scary going there. The minutes have been really good, like you said, and he potentially gets more minutes if Gallinari, who's questionable, is out as well. But he has been playing huge minutes, and obviously he looks better if Young is out. It goes kind of from like a secondary option, I think, if Gallinari and Young are in. If they're both out, I think Bogdanović ends up looking closer, at least, to a primary guy. Okay.
So the Atlanta Hawks, reading a couple of comments in chat that made me laugh for all the wrong reasons. Danilo Gallinari is also questionable. Does his status affect anything today enough with DeAndre Hunter also out for us to be talking about a potential replacement or a strong alternative if Gallo joins Hunter on the sidelines?
If Gallo's out, especially if Young is also out, I think that if you're playing multiple tournament lineups, you could look to like a $3,800 Solomon Hill. You're not going to feel good about it, but he's played at least 30 minutes in each of the last 2 games. And that's the kind of guy we're on a shorter slate. As long as he's not getting much ownership, you can sort of take a chance and hope for the best there. It would potentially help Lou Williams playing time as well. Williams against Toronto last game played 24.9 minutes. If you're getting 24, 25 minutes from Lou Williams against the fast-paced Milwaukee team at only 5K, I think that's a spot that has, a pretty nice ceiling as well. But if Young is in, if Gallinari's in, then he probably loses a few minutes and becomes less appealing.
So FanDuel has really flat ownership today for pretty good reason. There just aren't a lot of really great plays. Clint Capella is one of the many, one of like 10 that are coming in around that 20% range. Where do you land on Capella? He's $9,000 on FanDuel, $8,900 on DraftKings. Now, of course, Curry and Giannis, assuming Giannis plays, are the only two players above 10K. Once you get outside of that, you have De'Aaron Fox in a tough matchup against Phoenix. You have Jason Tatum in a super slow-paced game against the LA Lakers at 9,400, just DraftKings specifically here. And then, Trey Young at 9,100. Davis is out. LeBron's out. Clint Capella is there at 89. So and then Devin Booker, who I think we could argue that all of these Phoenix salaries, even in a really good matchup, might not make them the best plays on this slate either. What are you doing with Capella here at the center spot?
Yeah, I think Capella looks really good. And the big thing is that, all season long, Capella's produced at a high rate. He's played really, really well. It's just been a playing time issue for him. But with John Collins out, he's played 7 games now without John Collins this season. He's averaged 34.4 minutes per game, 1.36 DraftKings points per minute, is pretty much in line with what he's done all season long. The big thing is just, Collins isn't there to steal some of those backup center minutes. And so you're getting more playing time for Capella, more consistent playing time for Capella. And it just makes him look like a really good option. He had a ton of ownership last slate. I expect he'll have a lot again today. I don't think Young makes a big difference here. I think, Collins being out is what really matters.
Okay. Is there anything else from either side of this game right now, or should we just sit here and wait until we get the news?
We didn't really talk about Herter. He's another one at 5,100, 32 and a half minutes last game. If Gallo's out, the minutes I think are pretty secure. If Young is out, you potentially get more production from Herter. He's played 542 minutes without Young or Collins on the floor this year. Still only 0.8 DraftKings points per minute. But if you're going to get 32 minutes or so from him at 5,100, there's some value there.
Really, the thing about him is at this point, he's a low usage player whose usage barely comes up even with Trae off the floor. Like you said, around 0.8 fantasy points per minute. You just hope he gets his 32 or so minutes and knocks down his shots, particularly his 3-pointers, because if Trae and Giannis both play and nobody else is ruled out and we don't have any other significant news, Kevin Huerter is probably going to be relatively popular just because there aren't a lot of cheap options in decent enough spots. But I would say this, Tyrese Haliburton is the same price on FanDuel. Who would you look to if you had to go with one of them in a single entry, say tournament? Would you go Tyrese Haliburton or would you go Kevin Huerter, or cash games?
I would lean toward Haliburton just because, I think he's obviously better than Huerter. But I think they're close enough that you probably should be looking to ownership, especially in tournaments, or really only in tournaments, I guess. Just because I think the range of outcomes is really similar. The median projection is similar, but Haliburton is a little bit better per minute producer. He has a worse matchup against Phoenix though. But I would lean toward Haliburton.
Okay. I guess that's it on this one. We can move it on to Golden State and Cleveland then. The Golden State Warriors just blew the doors off the Oklahoma City Thunder last time out. Actually, yesterday, 38-point win. Steph Curry has been, it's funny, just as Josh and I said a few days ago, yeah, Curry being priced up at the likes of all of these other top tier players, it's tough to get there. Well, immediately after that, he goes for 2 40-plus point games. He only played 29 minutes yesterday. He has 32-plus points in each of his last 8 games. He's averaging 1.67 DraftKings points in the month of April. I mean, there's just nothing not to like about him here outside of the fact that he's going to be chalky, but it's not even that he's that chalky for a 4-gamer because there's not a lot of good value. I'm seeing him right now come in at not nearly as lofty as I thought, 25.8% on DraftKings, 32% on FanDuel, where you got to play 2 point guards. It's just, if this game stays close, and I know it's tough to say, well, he's shooting really well right now, but we know he's probably the best 3-point shooter ever. When Curry gets going and he's knocking down 11 of 16 threes, 10 of 18 threes, 8 of 15 like he's done over his last 3 games, he is impossible to stop. And he might not be big in the way of peripherals, right? But he still has a 30%+ assist rate. And when you look at DraftKings, this is a big thing that doesn't get talked about enough. He might not be a peripheral monster in terms of like Embiid with the block shots, the rebounds, and the scoring, and then 6 assists, or Nikola Jokic, or Giannis, or Doncic. But Adam, when you knock down 10 threes, that's an additional 5 points on DraftKings because they count the 3-point bonus.
Yeah, exactly. And he's seen a nice bump in usage without Kelly Oubre as well. Obviously, the efficiency's been up too, which that might come down to earth a little bit. But like you were saying, you're talking about one of the best shooters ever, or the best shooter ever. So it's not like this isn't like the same as when Curry was out and Andrew Wiggins suddenly became a knockdown 3-point shooter. And you're looking at it just saying like, okay, that's not going to keep happening. Curry's going to make a lot of 3-pointers. He's got a 37% usage rate in the games without 4 games without Oubre this year, 29.5% assist percentage. The only real knock against him is, like you said, most pay-up options are good rebounders because, rebounding is a consistent stat. It is something that, kind of increases your value nightly. And so you don't get that with Curry. So he is a little bit more scoring dependent than other guys that you pay up for, but he's also such an efficient scorer that that's a reasonable trade-off. And especially like you said on DraftKings, getting the 3-point bonus, makes it a little bit better as well.
Would you say if Giannis is active, are you looking to get equal parts Giannis and Curry, more Giannis? What are you thinking today, given the ownership and price points?
Yeah, I mean, in tournaments, I think I would look to get more of whichever is lower owned. I think, too. And this is assuming that we don't get any, minutes restriction for Giannis, but I think that, Giannis gives you the rebounding numbers. He's the better per minute fantasy producer, but Curry obviously has a similar projection. He has that same really high ceiling. And so I don't really think that on this particular slate, one should be drastically higher owned than the other. Typically for me, when I'm playing tournaments, what ends up happening there is I just end up going not even necessarily underweight on the one or drastically underweight on the one that's getting the most ownership, but definitely prioritizing the lower owned of the two.
Trey Young is a game time decision. Danilo Gallinari is out. So we're getting news trickling in slow enough. Hopefully we'll get that Trae Young news while we're doing the show. But if we don't, live before lock with Greg Ehrenberg, Eric Lindquist coming up next, taking you till 7:30. So stick around, same stream. They're going to cover the final hour as we lead up to lock and hit on any important news that we have. Of course, there's a 7:30 game, an 8 o'clock game, and 2 10 p.m. games. So it's likely that we won't have that Robert Williams news. Fortunately, everyone for the Lakers is probable. No one's really questionable. No one of significance, really. Richaun Holmes has really already been ruled out, and Phoenix has been healthy for like a month now. So not a huge deal there. But if we get news, we'll let you know for sure. Now, I hate playing Andrew Wiggins most nights. You know that. It's horrible because I looked at our boom bust tool today and I thought, oh my God, you've got to be kidding me. This guy on DraftKings and FanDuel has the highest optimal lineup probability or percentage. That scares the hell out of me. Now I think it's changed. We've gotten an update. Let me see here. Where does Wiggins sit? Wiggins is, okay, he's still top 10, but he's come down a little bit on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I'm assuming he's still relatively high. He's top 5. At 30.6% optimal lineup probability. So I hate going there. I don't think Oubre being out makes a big difference at all for somebody like Wiggins. He has a low floor and not the greatest ceiling, but maybe it's kind of unavoidable today. You tell me what you think about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you see someone like Wiggins getting in the optimal lineup that often, I think it really just speaks to mostly the position. On FanDuel, you, of course, have to roster 2 guys at shooting guard. There's not that many good shooting guards, especially if Sexton ends up missing this game for Cleveland. So, I mean, Wiggins is going to just end up in a lot of lineups there. And then on DraftKings, he has shooting guard and small forward eligibility. So you can roster him at 5 different roster spots. And he's at a reasonable price tag where, he doesn't look great, but he's not terrible either. He hasn't benefited so far with Oubre out. 5 games without Oubre this year, 0.81 DraftKings points per minute, 22% usage rate. I think it's pretty much the same Wiggins, that we've seen all season long. He's scoring dependent. He's obviously not the top scorer on the team with Curry out there, but I think he's just going to be kind of useful getting into lineups. Players like that, though, typically do become sort of interesting players to be underweight on if you're playing tournaments, just because he's getting ownership and he's getting into optimal lineups, not really because of anything to do with him. It's more so just like a lack of alternatives. So like it can be a little bit less risky, for lack of a better word, to not be on guys like that, as opposed to saying, Brandon Goodwin's popular, I'm not going to play him, or whoever the best projected value on the slate ends up being.
Then let's talk about Kent Bazemore, because this is equally fun for me. This is exactly what I'm saying when it's like, okay, the value options on this slate are not going to make you feel good whatsoever. And I think Bazemore's ownership has since come down, but he's still up around 20%. He's Kent Bazemore, right? He's basically going to give you similar production to someone like Harrison Barnes, but Barnes is going to play 40 minutes and leads the league in minutes played since the start of April. With Ken Bazemore, he played 21 minutes last night. Was all of that because of a blowout? Maybe, but his first half rotations were a little bit short. You need 30 plus minutes from Ken Bazemore at almost $5,000 on DraftKings to get where you need to go. So I look at him, and I think I said to you before the show started, there were so many people that I'm researching and looking up, and really the only requirement that they needed to meet, because this slate is so ugly in so many respects, was they just have to play enough minutes and not be too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think it's worth pointing out that Bazemore picked up his second foul in the second quarter yesterday. He subbed out with 6 minutes, 42 seconds to go, never came back. So I think that's why you saw the abbreviated rotation.
I saw it too, but I would have assumed the third foul would have been more impactful, because it was only how far into the second quarter? It was not long enough for where a second foul would make a big difference, right?
I mean, it did. Like that's when they took him out.
Who came? Mulder played like a bunch of minutes, right? So
yeah, Mulder subbed in and played the final 6 minutes, 42 seconds of the half. It looks like Golden State also kind of went on a run there. So I think, to what you were saying about the second foul, keeping him on the bench the rest of the half, I think if Golden State doesn't go on a run, you probably see, Bazemore come back with his second foul with a couple minutes to go.
Sure. All right. Well, then it's time for you to tell me where do we go with Ken Bazemore today? Because there's nothing pretty about him outside of the fact that there's no value, non-existent value on this slate.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. I mean, he played 35 minutes 2 games ago. He played 32 minutes the game before that. I expect that you're getting, another 32 or so minutes here. He's a 0.8 to 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy. He's only 4,900 on DraftKings. So I think he just projects as, a good point per dollar value. He's definitely not the kind of guy that at that price tag that you're going to be too concerned if he doesn't end up in your lineup. But I think the way value stands right now, at least, I think he just opens up a lot because there's not a whole lot of alternatives.
Will that change significantly for you if, say, Trey Young or Giannis are ruled out?
Yeah, I think so, especially Young, because it's going to open up Brandon Goodwin at that similar price tag. It's going to make Kevin Huerter and Lou Williams look better at price tag. So that's really the thing. Like when you look at Bazemore's salary right now, if you're assuming Young is in, if you're assuming Giannis is in, there's only so many guys you can look to there, and none of them really are going to make you feel any better than Kent Bazemore does. Just getting more options if those guys are ruled out is obviously going to pull down how much Bazemore you get.
James Wiseman's out for the year, at least assuming he's out for the season. We know he's out for an extended period of time. Could be they said it could be 4 to 6 weeks or multiple months. So your guess is as good as mine. All we know is that he's not playing today, tomorrow, or any weeks in the coming future.
So he's on the Top Shot withdrawal schedule.
What's that?
He's on the Top Shot withdrawal schedule, 4 to 6 weeks or multiple months.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Mine. Well, it's funny because at first they told me 30 days, right? Signed up in January, did the KYC. Then they sneakily change it to 6 to 8 weeks, right? 8.5 weeks goes by. I'm wondering what's going on here. And then I get this bullshit canned email about, like this, clearly the same email that they're copy and pasting to everybody else. And then finally it happened. But you're right. 4 to 6 weeks, maybe multiple months is Top Shot withdrawal status or timeline. He's not playing today, which means that Kevon Looney is likely going to get decent enough run for us to at least, oh God, that headshot is tough. We're going to at least have to talk about Kevon Looney. Check out that DraftKings headshot. That is something.
For Kevon Looney?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's nice. He looks like, yeah, I don't know. I can't think of the right way to describe it. Kind of scary though. 22 minutes last game, 31 minutes before that, 22 minutes before that. How many minutes are you giving him today?
Yeah, he's one of the more, I think, volatile pieces in terms of projecting the minutes, because he played about 31 minutes 2 games ago. He played a bunch of minutes in the first half yesterday and then didn't play a whole lot in the second half because of the blowout. Still finished at about 22 minutes. In games he's started without Wiseman this year, he's only averaged about 22 minutes per game. But based on the recent rotations, it seems like Steve Kerr is giving him more minutes. And he's not a bad per minute producer given his salary. He's about 0.84 DraftKings points per minute in his starts. So if you are going to get 28 to 30 minutes from Looney, he's going to look like a pretty good value. He's definitely someone that you can look to as an alternative to guessing what the Kings do at center. And especially with a lot of people looking to Sacramento, the Sacramento centers for value. So I think it's more likely than not that Looney is getting starter minutes here based on the last couple of games. We haven't seen, it's not like we've seen Smiley getting minutes outside of blowouts. Draymond Green is getting the backup center run behind Looney, but the rotations over the last couple of games have been pretty consistent and favorable for Looney.
Yeah, I'm with you. And really, as it stands, there just isn't a lot to get to on an 11-game slate. We'd probably brush this off. Hell, we might only spend a couple seconds on Kevon Looney, but he's okay. A couple of things here. One, is he a great per minute producer? No, he's not great, but he's not horrible either.
Yeah, it kind of just, it goes back to what we talk about a lot when you have, whenever you're considering ownership in tournaments, there's a tendency for people just to say, oh, this player is too popular or not popular enough or whatever, kind of without context. But in situations like this, where you have Hassan Whiteside getting 20% ownership, you have Looney getting 15% ownership, Whiteside's the better fantasy producer, but there's no guarantee he plays even half as many minutes as Looney does. Like, Whiteside could play 10 minutes tonight, and it's not the most likely outcome, but it's not, nobody would be really surprised. And so I think you have to kind of keep in mind when you look at these value options that they all have the same sort of playing time volatility. And so it's, even though Looney's not as good a fantasy producer as someone like Whiteside, there's a good enough chance that he's going to just play substantially more minutes. And so it makes him a guy that you can look to as an alternative.
I agree. Although Whiteside could play 10 minutes and have more fantasy points than Looney, who could play 23 minutes.
Yeah, without a doubt. But Looney also, he's not bad from a fantasy standpoint. He's not Whiteside, but he's, still 0.8 to 0.85 fantasy points per minute.
Okay, well, I'm looking at the rest of this team and not seeing a whole lot. I see Steph Curry, highest owned player, Andrew Wiggins, someone we might just have to bite the bullet on, Kent Bazemore, Kevon Looney, but Draymond Green, we got to talk about Dre. Dre's been awesome lately. He's played over the last 20 games. He's got 40 plus DraftKings points in half of them. We're seeing a resurgence from Dre. Remember, don't forget, Draymond Green was one of the best, he was one of the most reliable fantasy producers back a few years ago. I know you remember. You could plug him in and you'd have, you'd get your 30 to 50 or 35 to 50 every single game. Sure, weird range, but he put up great numbers all the time. And then he kind of leveled off. Beginning of this year wasn't great. Now, over the last 20 games, he's got 4 games 50 plus. All 4 of those are triple doubles, by the way. And he's coming off a huge triple double just yesterday with 12, 10, and 16, 2 blocks, 3 steals. What I love about Dre isn't the fact that he has a 5% usage rate, but he's a good passer, a good rebounder, a great shot blocker, gets steals, and plays a decent amount of minutes if the game is close.
Yeah, and he's really, really benefited this year when James Wiseman's been out. It gets him more time at center. You see his blocks go up. You see his rebounding numbers go up. He's played 12 total games this year without Wiseman and with Steph Curry active. Only a 13.5% usage rate, but 12.8% rebounding percentage is a couple points higher than his season average. 41.3% assist percentage, and he's averaging 1.3 blocks per game compared to about 0.4 blocks per game when Wiseman's in. So you're seeing him contribute in a couple of different ways without Wiseman, and it's been, it's consistently been happening. So I do really like Draymond here. I think that outside of Curry, he's the guy that I feel the best about on Golden State. Obviously a little bit different price point than someone like Bazemore, but I think Draymond looks really, really good here for as long as Wiseman's sidelined and he's at, the price point that he's at right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's going to get ownership. A lot of this Golden State team is getting ownership. That's 3 of the top 5 projected owned players that we have on our ownership projections right now are all Golden State. Curry, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins. And then Kent Bazemore is not far behind. The one that's kind of lagging behind everybody else would be Kevon Looney, who's down there around 15%, but still, he's at least getting a little bit of recognition on this slate. I don't have anyone else for Golden State. Do you?
I think Juan Toscano-Anderson needs to be mentioned just because he is so cheap. He's someone that can drop off pretty quickly if we get better value elsewhere. But he played about 10 or 11 first half minutes last game, played 24 minutes total the game before. So I'm expecting you're getting 20 to 24 minutes from Toscano-Anderson at 3,500. Not something that you're going to be really excited about, but it is a reasonable value option on this particular slate.
Cleveland. We're waiting on one piece of news here. Colin Sexton is questionable today, didn't play yesterday on the first leg of a back-to-back. So we'll see where this one goes. Garland was questionable in that game. He did play, so he's off the injury report. I actually want to start with Kevin Love here for a couple of reasons. First off, he's not unowned at all. As a matter of fact, Kevin Love is pretty popular right now. He played a back-to-back, both of them actually, played 31 minutes on the second leg of a back-to-back, 21 minutes on the first leg. That was only 4 and 5 days ago. This is another back-to-back. He played 27 minutes yesterday. Do you think there's any chance that we get news right before lock that he is not playing? And if he does play, are you worried that JB Bickerstaff might limit him? I know he played that back-to-back, but this would make it 2 back-to-backs in 5 days. This would be 4 games in 5 days for Kevin Love.
To your first question, I think there's a greater than 0 chance that we get late news on Love. Not saying I think it's the most likely thing or that I'm planning for it, but Giannis is playing, by the way. But it's certainly on the table. Like, kind of like yesterday with Marcus Morris, for example. It wouldn't really shock anybody. But if he does play, I'm going to assume that he gets his normal 27, 28 minutes here, just because I don't really have anything else to go on. They certainly have enough bodies in their front court that they could limit Love a little bit. But there's just nothing, unless we get, a beat reporter saying it's the case. Like there's nothing that makes me think he's likely to be limited more than he normally is.
Someone just sent me something. I guess the Andrew Wiggins base set common out of 35,000 is new, and the low ask is $400 with 3 of them for sale. That'll go well. $400. Stop it.
Are you rushing to buy those?
Yeah, I'm going to buy all 3. So, all right. So then if we dig a little bit deeper, he's high on, but Kevin Love, despite not really being on the court a lot this season, he's always been a very good per minute guy. Like he's a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy. If Colin Sexton's out, his usage will bump up 1 or 2%, which doesn't hurt. How much love do you intend on getting to today if he's active and we don't get any word that he's limited?
I think he's underpriced. Golden State hasn't been very good defensively recently. They are a fast-paced team, and the salary just really stands out. I think when you look at a $6,200 Kevin Love on DraftKings, on FanDuel, he's coming in at $6,300, so a good price tag there. I think he's a good play. Obviously, there's some risk just because Cleveland is getting healthy. They certainly could run a weird rotation, but there's no real reason, again, to think that they're going to. He's averaged 1.23 DraftKings points per minute in 9 total games without Drummond this year. 25.5% usage rate, 16.3% rebounding percentage. You could see the rebounding percentage come down a bit with Jared Allen, playing more minutes and being back in the lineup. But Love's still a good rebounder. He's still going to get enough that I'm not concerned about this price tag for him.
Okay. I'm not concerned about it either. Now, the rest of the front court, does anything stand out to you at all for Cleveland here?
No, not really. Jared Allen played about 30 minutes yesterday, which is somewhat appealing, but you expect I don't expect him to produce at the same rates that he was when he first came to Cleveland, because I think playing alongside Love hurts him a little bit because Love is a good rebounder. So I'm not overly excited about paying a $7,700 price tag for Jared Allen. Larry Nance only played about 20 minutes, so not really getting there. Hartenstein only played 13, and as expected, Allen and Nance coming back cut into his playing time. Also cut into Dean Wade, who only played about 26 minutes. So Love's really the only thing from the front court that stands out to me.
I'm looking at the backcourt, assuming now that Colin Sexton plays. Let's just say he plays, and I don't really see a whole lot that stands out. Maybe you're on to something that I'm not seeing here. It is a small slate, and the prices aren't crazy. Garland's okay, but at 6,600, I can see that. I'd like it a lot more at 6,600. However, if Colin Sexton remains out, then I think we get into an entirely different conversation of how good of a play really is Darius Garland at a mid 6K price point.
Yeah, I think the Sexton news definitely plays a role there, because you get more usage available if Sexton's out. Without Sexton on the floor this year, Garland's played 512 total minutes. He's averaged 0.98 DraftKings points per minute. Running it now to see what he's done with Kevin Love, he's only played 52 minutes alongside Love, but still around a fantasy point per minute without Sexton on the floor. So, I think Garland, the big thing is how many minutes he would play. You're expecting 35, 36 minutes from Garland. It's a reasonable price tag and probably around the fantasy point per minute. So if Sexton's out, Garland looks like a pretty good mid-range option. If Sexton's in, I think he does take a step back.
All right. Says this dude is wearing a baseball hat and they got no baseball content. Incorrect. Plenty of baseball content. Matter of fact, we already did 2 baseball shows today. And fella, you're more than welcome to go back and watch it, because once it stops being live, it is available on YouTube. And all of our other shows, as a matter of fact, are available in podcast form on Apple Podcasts or on wherever you want, Spotify, you name it. We got you covered. So more so the ones that actually have somewhat of a shelf life. But if you want to check them out in podcast form, maybe you don't have YouTube Premium, you don't want to put your phone in your pocket with the screen open, just check them out there. Very simple. But thank you for reminding me, sir. All right. So I'm looking at Cleveland, I see Kevin Love, solid option. Darius Garland could be in play, already kind of is, but much better in the event that Colin Sexton sits. Then you started to get into this weird territory of players that just don't stand out really ever unless there are injuries. Can we get to anything else here from the Cavs?
I don't really think so. Like the only guy that I think plays enough minutes to possibly matter, I guess two of them, Okoro and Taurean Prince. Prince coming off a game where he played 29 minutes yesterday, but neither of those guys are particularly cheap given their production. With Prince, obviously you have he's not particularly likely to play 20 minutes again. He's more likely to play 20 to 22. So neither of those guys really stand out to me. I think it's basically Love as the priority, and then Garland potentially if Sexton's out.
All right. We got 2 down, 2 to go. Jordan, what do you say we do our Awesemo Hall of Fame real quick? Yeah? All right, Jordan Klein producing the show. Pull it up on the screen. We got more screenshots. And if you got the screenshots, if you got the Lafayette avatar, if you got the Awesemo avatar on DraftKings, on FanDuel, on Yahoo, anywhere, Jack Market, No House Advantage, any of these places, be sure to tweet at us at Awesemo Hall of Fame and let us know when you take something down. And in order to do that, all you got to do is go to awesemo.com/avatar. If you take top 3 in any contest with 5,000 or more entries, not only are you probably winning a lot of money, but you're also getting a free month of Awesemo Plus, which is an almost $100 value. Just tweet at us, let us know, and we will hook you up. We got this guy. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name because the writing's really small and I can't read it. But look at that. Tied for first, 2 different lineups. I'm assuming it's the same. Maybe not. I don't know. And 14th. Beautiful stuff right there. 10K up top. He's got 12K between the two. Make that 12-6. Go to the next one, Jordan. What do we have? Yeah, you got me? Remember saying just go 10 seconds. Don't even let me tell you. Just run right through it. Run right through it because now, there we go. Coltian's dad? Colty and this is tough, man. But $2,000 first place, another Steph Curry game from you. Kyrie Irving only 21 in that game, still coming up number 1 in there, just a weekend player. But with the help of Live Before Lock and Alex's projections, I got a winner. Jody Grant, congratulations. Seriously, if you want to check the tools out, go to awesemo.com. These are the tools that everyone's using to get these. You see the Awesemo avatars up top. You see Alex Baker himself. You see Rinpack. You see Adam. You see all of these guys topping the leaderboards. Awesemo avatars 1, 5, 7, 3, 10. Well, ownership, player projections, boom bust tool, top stack tool, lineup builder, fantasy cruncher add-on, all of that good stuff at awesemo.com/join. Whether it's a weekly express for less than $4 or you want to go all out for the month, every single sport, or the year, anything, single sport, all sports, we got you. And use that avatar. Put yourself in the running for a free month. Let us know. Tweet me, tweet Awesemo Hall of Fame. Get your name up on there. Love to show off for you. Put you up in the showcase in the Hall of Fame. All right, Boston and the Lakers. Boston Celtics. We're sitting on injury news for Robert Williams, and this is significant because he's going to be chalky if he plays today, Adam. They're 6-point favorites against the Lakers, 212 total. Slow-paced game, understandably so. But Robert Williams, if you look at his full body of work and not just what he's done in the past few games because he's come back down to earth, he is actually the best permanent fantasy producer on the Boston Celtics. Yeah,
he's around 1.25 fantasy points per minute in the games he started this year. You're typically getting 25, 26 minutes from him, barring foul trouble, which obviously is a risk here. But it's nice because while he's not a high usage guy, which is normally something that you look for, when you're talking about a Boston team that has Kemba Walker, has Jaylen Brown, has Jason Tatum, it's nice that Williams isn't relying on getting up a lot of shots to reach fantasy value. He blocks a lot of shots. He rebounds well. You're getting, again, 25, 26 minutes. So I think a really, really cheap price tag there. It's not a very appealing matchup against the Lakers, but there's still going to be missed shots. He's still going to get boards, tough matchup with the Lakers front court in particular, but I think he's just priced lower than he should be.
Yeah, I think he is too. And I like him a lot. And I feel like this is someone you're going to have to get to because very similar to Draymond Green, I love players like Robert Williams. Great rebounder, 9% shot block rate. 9% block rate. He's even has a 14% assist rate, pretty low usage rate, but he finds ways to kind of cover all the bases each and every night, or at least most nights he does. And I think that's really valuable on a slate like this, especially at a sub 6K price point.
Yeah, you mentioned the assist. He has a 20% assist percentage in his 10 starts this season.
It's not bad. I mean, actually, I'll take that all day long. I also found it strange today that there are so many price tags on DraftKings and FanDuel that are identical to each other. Like all of the good plays have the exact same price point on DraftKings and FanDuel. Maybe they're trying to tell us something. I don't know. What else are you doing with Boston?
Yeah, nothing else really stands out from Boston. You know, obviously you can get to Kemba, you can get to Brown, you can get to Tatum. All these guys have high ceilings, but they're priced, I think, pretty much where they should be. The Lakers are a slow team. They're a strong defensive team, even without Anthony Davis, without LeBron James. So nothing really stands out there. If Williams were to be ruled out, which we probably won't have before lock, I assume that Tristan Thompson slides into the starting lineup and plays enough minutes to be a good value at 4,100.
Is that it for do you have nothing else for Boston really?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. Like Brown and Tatum both have high ceilings, but I don't really like the matchup. I don't really like the price tags all that much. Walker is around a fantasy point per minute guy that should play 33 or 34 minutes here, so he's fine. They're pieces where I view them more as last piece in type plays than guys that I'm actually prioritizing, with the exception of Williams.
The Lakers side gets interesting when you look at Andre Drummond, who has not been the same Andre Drummond that we know from the past, but he's still a 1.48 DraftKings point per minute producer on the season. He's still good. And if we're looking at the toe injury and talking about how the toe injury is still affecting him, I think there's probably some legitimacy to that, probably some truth to that. But just in his last 4 games, he's had 2 really solid games without having to play huge minutes. I still think the upside is there for Drummond. He still has double-digit rebounds in 4 straight games. The point totals have really sucked. The shot volume hasn't been great, but the usage is still 25% with the Lakers. So all in all, I still think he's an enigmatic player. That's for you, Emac. An enigmatic player since he's joined the Lakers. But the upside on a 4-game slate for someone like Drummond just seems so astronomical that we'd be crazy not to at least consider him tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you. He hasn't been very good since joining the Lakers. Maybe it's the toe injury. Maybe it's that he didn't play basketball for, competitive basketball for like 2 months after the Cavs shut him down. So, I think that it makes sense for him to be struggling a little bit. But at the same time, that just reiterates how high the ceiling is, because the fact that he's only averaged 1.13 DraftKings points per minute and 22.6 minutes per game since joining the Lakers is keeping his salary in check. And it's not like Drummond's going to come out before a game and be like, oh, by the way, feel great today. Cardio is good. I'm going to go back to producing at the rate that I've produced throughout like my entire career. You're not going to find that out before the game. It's just going to happen.
Exactly right.
And Drummond's just going to be drastically underpriced for a period of time until it catches up. So, I think he's priced basically for his production with the Lakers. And you look at the playing time last game too against Charlotte. He only played 24.3 minutes. He picked up his second and third fouls with 6 minutes to go in the second quarter. So he lost like 6 minutes there. There have been a couple games with the Lakers already where either foul trouble or blowouts have made him go from, it looked like, 28 to 30 minutes down to 22, 23. So I think that there's a little bit more playing time available for Drummond than recent game logs suggest. And I think that sooner than later, you're going to get more or better production than he's shown so far as well.
I think so too. And I'm perfectly happy coming along for the ride. Now I'll throw one to you that maybe we'll have a disagreement on. That doesn't always happen, but sometimes it does. Kyle Kuzma has been awful lately. Okay. He's been absolutely atrocious. You look at how he's shooting from the field, from beyond the arc, awful. 31% from the field, 22% from long range over his last 4 starts, but he's still playing a lot of minutes. And he's still one of the few players in that price range, especially given that there's no AD, there's no LeBron James, that can pop off for a pretty big game if his shots are getting knocked down. And when he is knocking down his shots, his shot volume generally increases when he's shooting well. We've seen it a lot, especially recently. And then other games, he's just awful, like 2 for 13, 1 for 11 shooting. I think Kuzma at a really bad small forward position makes for a pretty decent option at pretty negligible ownership, given how small the slate is.
My only real concern with Kuzma is his rebounding numbers with Drummond. He was someone that from the time they signed Drummond, I said I was pretty concerned about his fantasy production. And he's played 9 games so far without Davis, without LeBron, and without Drummond. He has a 12.7% rebounding percentage and a 16.6% assist percentage. In the 3 games he's played with Drummond, he only has a 9% rebounding percentage and a 7.5% assist percentage. So the assist, going down that much, probably not solely caused by Drummond, probably also just getting a little unlucky. But the rebounding numbers, I really am concerned about because it's in line with what I expected to happen. So you're kind of turning Kyle Kuzma into a scoring dependent player in
And Anthony Edwards. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I still think based on what you're saying, based on the playing time, based on the shot volume, he's still fine. He still has a chance for success, but I would just feel a lot better about him if Andre Drummond weren't playing.
That is fair. It's definitely taken a hit. On any bigger slate, I wouldn't really have much interest in him at all. But I do think when you're talking about someone that has has a decent enough ceiling. For example, if I'm talking about Kyle Kuzma and comparing him to, say, Andrew Wiggins, right? How about these two? This is kind of a perfect example. If Andrew Wiggins is going to be like 10% higher owned, 12% higher owned than Kyle Kuzma, I don't really think Andrew Wiggins, who is also awful when it comes to getting peripheral stats, I don't really know if he's deserving of that at an even more expensive price point. So what differentiates the two for you?
Yeah, I think that's a really good comparison because they're similar. Like if you look at Kuzma's rates with Drummond, they're similar. He's averaged 0.88 DraftKings points per minute, which is about what you're getting from Wiggins. They're going to average similar minutes per game. That's a perfect, example where even though you're not very happy necessarily rostering Kuzma, he has the same range of outcomes, a very similar projection to someone like Wiggins who's getting more ownership. So that is one spot where, I think that it's fine to play Kuzma instead of Wiggins at that lower ownership. I don't think that you're really losing much by doing so.
Sure. And I agree with you, Chat. I generally hate playing Kyle Kuzma too, but you're crazy if you don't think I dislike playing Andrew Wiggins as well. I mean, that's one of the worst feelings in the world. So I guess it's a give and take situation here. Where else are we going on the Lakers?
Yes, I mean, Drummond stands out. Schroeder, I think, is the next piece. He's only 6,300 on DraftKings, which is just a really, really cheap price tag. Not surprisingly, his production's gone up without LeBron and without LeBron and without Davis, but he's not hurt as badly by Drummond being there. He's played 5 games with Drummond, still has a 25% usage rate, actually has a 38.9% assist percentage as well. So maybe even getting more assists with Drummond there, which would make sense. So I think Schroeder stands out as a great option at 6,300.
All right. I haven't asked for likes since the beginning of the show. I'm learning to curb the addiction. So I will ask one more time. We got about 10 minutes to go. Hit that thumbs up. Put us up over the 500 mark. What do we have? Almost 2,300 people watching on a Thursday night 4-gamer. Let's be a family here. Nice, solid community. And hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell if you haven't done so yet. We have one game left. It's Sacramento and Phoenix. Before we get to that, let's say hi to our sponsor. It is Jock Market. I know most of you guys have heard about this because a lot of you people show up to the show every day and, we hang out. We talk DFS. But if you're new to the show, first of all, welcome. Hit that subscribe. Second, if you haven't gone and checked out Jock Market yet, especially if you're someone that enjoys the stock market, also enjoys DFS, what are you waiting for? It is basically taking the DFS game, taking the stock market, blending them together in a beautiful way. You have the ability to buy and sell shares of players in real time for real money, guaranteed payouts for all shares at the end of the night. Talking NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, making real money every hour, down to the minute, down to the second on Jock Market. But here's the cool part, and this is where everything really ties in, not just buying and selling shares, but there's a pregame IPO that you can use to pick up shares of your favorite players. Then you can buy them, you can sell them, or hold during the game based on your analysis. And after today's Live Before Lock, you'll have Greg and Eric sticking around for a half hour to show you exactly how it works and to hopefully give you some of their best pickups, some buys, sells, and all of that good stuff. And if you want to join, if you want to download the app, you think this is something you'd like, you want to be able to make some money, because I've heard there's a pretty significant edge over there right now. Use the promo code AWESEMO20, AWESEMO20, all one word, get a $20 bonus on your first deposit. It's an exclusive offer only for Awesemo viewers, the Awesemo community. Take advantage of it. It's AWESEMO20, $20 deposit bonus when you sign up, deposit, and download the app. No house. Jock Market. I almost caught myself there. It's tough life as a host, man. Jock Market, check it out. Download the app. Use the promo code AWESEMO20. All right, you ready to talk about Hassan Whiteside?
Yeah.
I'm not, but we will try. Hassan Whiteside, Sacramento Kings. They're huge dogs here, also playing their second of a back-to-back. He played 23 minutes yesterday. Didn't get the start because Damian Lee, who is, I was right the first time. Damian Jones. Damian Lee is, not on a 10-day contract. Damian Jones on a 10-day contract, played 16 minutes, Whiteside came in, and then you had Me Too play like 6 minutes, but Whiteside played 23 minutes, also against a very small Washington team. I think it's possible that he plays 10 minutes tonight, but if Whiteside plays 20 plus or even 19 minutes, I want a lot of him at 3,400. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, at that price tag, I think that the reward outweighs the risk, but I do think that there are substantial risks. Like don't talk yourself into, there being no way that Whiteside can fail here, because there's a couple. For one, 2 games ago when Holmes was injured, Jones started the second half, played like 16 minutes in that half. So one thing that could happen tonight is Jones just plays 30 minutes. He did. If you look at the first half rotation yesterday, Whiteside was the third center to come in, and he didn't come in until Damian Jones picked up his second foul at the start of the second quarter. And then Whiteside came in, played really well, never left the floor, and then he was in the rotation in the second half. So one risk is just that Luke Walton runs a different rotation today, and it's similar to the first half rotation, except Jones doesn't get in foul trouble and Whiteside just doesn't see the floor or plays a few minutes. So that's one risk. The other risk is that, and kind of related, Washington plays a center for pretty much the entire game, whether it's Alex Len, Robin Lopez, or Daniel Gafford. The Suns are going to have DeAndre Ayton and then Dario Saric. Saric is someone that can stretch the floor, make life difficult for Whiteside. You could potentially just see a smaller lineup out there. I don't think it's the most likely outcome, but it's another way that things can kind of go sideways for Whiteside. But I think it really just comes back to he's 3,400. So even if he does, you said it earlier, even if he only plays 12 minutes, that obviously isn't what you're looking for, but sometimes he's still going to put up a good enough score in 12 minutes that you get bailed out anyway. So he's just so cheap that it's hard to get away from him. But I do think it's important, because he is one of the highest owned guys, because he is one of the most obvious values, to reinforce that there's pretty significant risk here as well.
All right. I agree with that. I think his optimal percentage right now, optimal lineup percent, 41% on DraftKings. So it's high. It's actually, this is the interesting thing. This boom bust tool that we have at Awesemo, by the way, this is when we reference, if we're referencing like boom rating, bust rating, or the optimal lineup percentage, the probability that he's going to be in the optimal lineup, in a perfect lineup, so to speak, is 40% today. But his ownership is coming in around 20%. Did it change over 22%? So that's still, let me see if when I refresh this, if it changed, because I'm assuming it's still way up there. That would still,
it's 22% ownership, 39.4% optimal.
So that's double his ownership.
Yeah, and it speaks to not only the chances of success for Whiteside, but also just how useful it is when you have a value play near 3K.
Yep, and a very similar player in terms of, we don't know what his minutes will look like, but he's a good per minute producer. Andre Drummond has almost double the optimal lineup percentage to his ownership as well. Keep that stuff in mind. That's free for you guys, even if you don't have the tool, throwing out a little info there. And if you want to get half off of an MMA pass, especially with a huge Usman Masvidal fight coming up on April 24th, use the promo code UFC261. 50% off the entire month of MMA content. Ownership, player projections, top fighter tool, all of that great stuff that we have for NBA and everything else we got for MMA as well. Take advantage of that. We're not just doing a weekly thing. We're doing a full month, half off. Some of the greatest content out there you're going to find. It's $14.95 for 30 days of Awesemo Plus MMA. Use the promo code UFC261. Harrison Barnes leads the league in minutes per game over the last 15 days since the start of April. That's the only reason I really have any interest in him, is because he's playing a ton of minutes. What are you doing with the rest of the Kings?
Yeah, I agree with you there. He's at a similar price point to guys like Wiggins and Kuzma, and just plays huge minutes. He's around 0.85 to 0.9 fantasy points per minute, which is in line with those guys. It's not a very appealing matchup. Phoenix, not a particularly fast team. They're a good defensive team. They're just a good team in general. So I don't love the matchup, but Barnes, just based on playing time, can find his way into some lineups. De'Aaron Fox, I don't really like the price point there. He's been playing really well. He's playing huge minutes also, but a tough matchup here, and he's getting 19% ownership on DraftKings. He looks a little bit over-owned there, unless that comes down between now and lock. So I think Whiteside the priority, Barnes a secondary option. The other thing to point out as far as Whiteside goes, if you are playing larger field tournaments, you can look to Damian Jones at 3K because he negatively correlates with Whiteside. Whiteside's the better fantasy producer, but if one of those scenarios plays out that we were talking about, where Jones plays way more minutes than anyone's expecting and Whiteside plays fewer, obviously Jones is benefiting and he's much lower owned than Whiteside. So again, I think Whiteside is a good play, all things considered. But if you are going the route where you're not playing Whiteside, it makes some sense to go to Damian Jones.
I guess it does, right? Because it's not guaranteed that he only plays 16 minutes again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he played 16 minutes in the half 2 games ago when Holmes got hurt.
Right. It's Luke Walton.
Yeah, exactly.
It's Luke Walton. That's the only answer you need here. By the way, yes, I am very, very much in tune with the injury news. Colin Sexton will play. Robert Williams is out. What I want to do, since we still have a couple minutes here, then we'll turn it over to Greg and Eric, is we'll hit on the Robert Williams news, the Time Lord news, after we get through this game. So, Adam, let's wrap it up. Somehow we're up against it with 4 games. I don't know how we do it. It's impressive. I don't think I'm as fond on Phoenix as a lot of other people are right now, because all of these salaries are tough for me. Like, is Booker worth almost $9K? Is Chris Paul, who it clearly seems like Monty Williams has been intentionally limiting his minutes recently, 13-point favorites almost, is he worthwhile at this price point? If he plays 28 minutes, you tell me what we've got going on here to close out the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good matchup against Sacramento.
It's great. It might be the best matchup out there. I understand that.
Right. It's just, like you said, there's still not a ton of value on the slate. And are you prioritizing, Booker and Paul? I think that they're both fine. I don't have a problem with them, but they don't stand out as, my favorite options. DeAndre Ayton looks like he's going a little bit over-owned as well. Like, I think that Andre Drummond looks a little bit better, even though Ayton is a good player. Where I'm actually most interested in Phoenix, though, is the value, because you have Cam Payne at 3,500. You have Dario Saric at 3,300. Those guys are Saric backing up Ayton, Payne basically backing up Chris Paul. But if this game were to get out of hand, those guys are going to play more. They're productive players on a per minute basis. So like in Saric's case, if Ayton gets in foul trouble somehow, Saric benefits. And he's just so cheap that I think both of those guys are going to be pretty useful as far as building on lineups.
Cam Payne to me is very interesting on a night where if this game gets out of control, mind you, Sacramento playing their second of a back-to-back. So might have some tired legs with guys that have been playing a ton of minutes, and Phoenix is just a really good basketball team. Would you be shocked if Payne, who has been getting those backup point guard minutes behind Paul, who hasn't been playing a ton recently, 25, 27, and 26 minutes in all 3 of those games, 2 of them were blowouts, but the game against Houston, his minutes, he closed that game out and still only played 27 minutes. Did you see that, by the way? And is there anything that stood out to you in that one? Because it seemed to me that Monty Williams was just intentionally limiting his minutes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I hadn't seen it. I don't want to read too much into it, but it all still – it all goes back to, there's a lot of ways for Payne to play enough minutes here to be viable. He's played 42 games this year with Booker and with Paul, both active. He's averaged 17.2 minutes per game. He's averaged a little bit over a fantasy point per minute. At 3,500, if he just gets his normal playing time, he's going to be okay. And if anything weird happens, Paul plays fewer minutes than normal, the game blows out, whatever. It doesn't take much for Payne to end up being a very good value.
Anything else for Phoenix? We can wrap it up with just a quick touch on Robert Williams news and how it impacts your play for tonight.
Yeah, that's all I have from Phoenix. I think the biggest thing for the Robert Williams news is that it most likely is going to give us another value center that we can look at. Tristan Thompson's been backing up Williams, playing around 21, 22 minutes. I assume Thompson slides into the starting lineup now. I'm trying to pull it up to see how many games he's played as the starter without Tice. Or without Tice this year. But I think you probably get like 26 plus minutes from Thompson at 4,100, which is going to look pretty good. Okay.
And the tweet just comes out by Awesemo_com. Robert Williams could be one of the best values on the slate if he plays. Delete. He out. So are we. Thanks for hanging out as always, guys. This has been a fun one, 4 games, but we made sure to cover everything. Good luck tonight. Hit that thumbs up, but more than anything, stick around for Greg and Eric Live Before Lock coming up next. This is the Deeper Dive presented by Jock Market. We'll catch you back here to close out the work week. Adam and myself tomorrow night, 5 o'clock Eastern.
You guys.
Please.
Not much.
Dodgers lineup is not good today. That.
Yeah, just finished updating all my baseball lineups.
I'm finishing that now.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It is the Awesemo NBA Live Before Lock show, sponsored by Jock Market. You guys know what that means. Thursday night, not only are Eric Lindquist and I going to be talking about the NBA slate, or whatever we can make of the NBA slate for the next hour. We're going to be going 30 minutes after that to talk about Jock Market and everything they have going on their app. So for sure, guys, stick around because like I always say, not only are we going to be talking about games for the next hour, very good chance that players are going to be scratched well after the slate starts. And that'll be something that Eric and I will also be covering over the 30-minute Jock Market period. So, Eric, scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you that you know who you're going to be rostering tonight right now?
Oh, 2. Like I'm at a 2 at the moment. I mean, how are we feeling about Tristan Thompson right now? How are we feeling about Hassan Whiteside right now? How are you feeling about all of these guys? We still don't have Trae Young news. I mean, it's just kind of like, I don't know. I'm either going to have Brian Goodwin and have tons of Giannis and tons of Steph, or I really don't know what else I'm going to do because I don't want to play chalky Hassan Whiteside and talk of all. Yeah, chalky Eric. There it is. It's coming. I was going to say, I was waiting. I love you guys. Missed you, chat.
So now
You missed this, by the way.
I feel like people are in your head a little bit right now. Is your stigma now of being chalk Eric? Is this going to impact any of your lineup decisions? Where you feel like I have to go contrarian now because I have to go against the grain. I can't just be known as this man of chalk.
Yeah, I'm willing to burn a couple $100 to roster Metu tonight. That's basically what I'm going to do. I'm going to just try to like Thor hammer it, just windmill slam some Metu, and we'll see how that works out. And then you guys can all I'll laugh to the bank at my 0.2% Metu. No, I'm not playing Metu. I'm just kidding, by the way.
So speaking of ownership, and if you guys do want to try to get on Eric for any of the guys he likes at any specific ownership, good news for you. The ownership projections are feedawesemo.com, so you can go check those out and follow along as we go. And if you happen to notice Eric's liking anybody who's a little chalky, you could point that out. But one thing that does stand out to me about this slate, I don't know if you noticed, for a 4-game slate, there isn't really that much major chalk on DraftKings, right? Like you would expect for a 4-game slate there to be, some like really obvious value plays. But I mean, going across the two sites, Steph Curry's the most roster player on both FanDuel and DraftKings right now. 33% on FanDuel, on DraftKings, 26%. Relative to a 4-game slate, this is way less ownership towards the top end guys we would normally see.
Yeah, and I love it because it gives you such an advantage. I mean, if you wanted to have a day to be utilizing the boom bust tool, this is absolutely it. I mean, I'm going to be refreshing that thing all the way up until the end of the entire evening because there's just such an unbelievable amount of opportunity by getting leverage on the field by realizing some of these plays that are just a little under-owned. I mean, I was shocked that Whiteside wasn't higher owned over on DK. I thought he was kind of just a product of the slate a little bit. And I think that was definitely expressed in the boom bust tool. I will say I'm very surprised by Andrew Wiggins popping up in different spots, but that speaks to playing 2 plays on FanDuel specifically, where he really pops. I mean, I'm just going to be refreshing this thing constantly. And once we get this Trae Young news, which I mean, God forbid we don't have that up until like 4:29 out here on the West Coast, 7:29 on the East Coast. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of leverage to be had, even on a 4-gamer today.
Well, at least we got the other news. I mean, we have Markieff Morris. He's listed as questionable. That's not going to be massively impactful for me. The Trae Young news is going to be, but other guys, ate early in the day when like Giannis was questionable, Sexton was questionable. I thought that all these guys, and Robert Williams, who was recently ruled out, and I think that's what we should get into next because I doubt they'd had that much time to talk about it on the deep dive. But I was thinking like I'm gonna have to kill an hour on the show having no clue who I'm rostering until 5 minutes before the slate starts, which is still a little bit the case, but at least we have some of these key names ruled in or out officially, so we have somewhat of a sense. But let's start with Boston and with the Robert Williams news because you had mentioned it before. How confident are you in Tristan Thompson? And I haven't really worked through the Boston rotation yet because, I mean, I was finalizing my MLB lineups and the Celtics news came out right before we started. So let's get right into Robert Williams in the center rotation for the Celtics. What are you expecting to happen here?
Okay, so basically, I think Tristan Thompson has to be the guy that we plug in for 25 plus minutes. I think that's kind of the no-brainer. Does it feel fantastic? No, it doesn't. But low usage, decent enough. Like he could walk into a double-double. You're going to need him then at 4,100 where you can play 2 centers on DraftKings. What gets really interesting is that we have like a guy like Luke Cornett and Mo Wagner now on this team that I haven't even like remotely thought of one time from fantasy relevance since they got traded, other than that one game right after the trade where Mo Wagner was kind of a thing and he should not have been a thing. But like, I think that they maybe play like 8 minutes. You see a little Taco Fall like thrown into the midst of whatever. But for the most part, Like, I think 25 minutes is kind of the conservative number. I'm curious what Alex is going to come up with, but that's what I plugged in for now. And he grades out pretty darn well at 4,100 on a slate where, unless we get Goodwin, I think he's probably your most secure piece of value.
I feel a little bit better. I mean, I don't know if I'd say I feel better. I prefer Hassan Whiteside as a play to Tristan Thompson as of now. If Whiteside was to be like, I thought Whiteside was just going to be stone cold chalk.
I like Hassan Whiteside as a play more, but I think security wise, you're getting 25 minutes. I think of Tristan on the low end. I think that's my feeling.
Yeah, I don't understand why people aren't just flocking to roster Hassan Whiteside. Like, I was thinking earlier today, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to debate whether to play a chalky Whiteside or not. And it's not to say he isn't relatively popular, but I mean, after what he did last night, I just figured that he was going to be, a super popular play on a slate that doesn't have all that much value. I understand at least FanDuel, he's a little bit more expensive, but I still think he's a good play there. But I find it a little hard to talk about Tristan Thompson without also roping Hassan Whiteside into the mix, because a lot of people are going to probably be choosing between the two, particularly on FanDuel. So I know for me, I view Whiteside as having more upside. I think I agree with you, though. Since Tristan Thompson is starting, I think that you can make the case that he has a higher floor, especially because we've seen Whiteside, totally marginalized from the rotation at times. So I guess
he didn't enter the game until the 10:21 mark yesterday, or like 10:20, whatever it was. It was like around the 10-minute mark yesterday in the second quarter. So like, that's a long period of time. They had Damian Jones first rotation. Metu played that first quarter and then didn't come back in. They split the center minutes there in that first quarter. And then it wasn't until like 10-minute mark where Hassan Whiteside came in. Then he played awesome. And there was like no point, like at that point, it was like, all right, we got to let him play a little bit. They started coming back a little bit from the hole that they were in. But like, that's really what freaks me out about this slate is like a guy like Whiteside who didn't even show up and probably wouldn't have shown up in any meaningful way had he not smashed that first rotation in the second quarter.
Yeah, so here's my thoughts on that. Number one, we don't need Hassan Whiteside, at least not for his DraftKings price, to play a whole lot of minutes to take value. And frankly, he doesn't really have to for his FanDuel price either, because it's much cheaper than we've seen from him, like last year where he was a starter or something like that. Now, with that said, the minutes from last night, a little bit of a concern, but I also think there's a good chance he's played himself into more minutes. The Kings have really struggled as of late, and I think that Whiteside showed enough yesterday to where they might be like, hey, let's go kick the tires on Whiteside. Is it going to go well? No, almost certainly not. But I think that he gave them enough yesterday where they might be like, hey, let's go see what he has. And the other thing also that makes the game a little wonky and starting to get a little bit all over the place, but the minutes there are so difficult to predict because the Suns are in the middle of a brutal stretch right now where they have to play 9 games in 15 days. And it is a really wide spread. And I just wonder how much are they going to be playing starters in that game? And so it could be a spot where Whiteside, who already, by the way, is going to be coming off the bench, we expect, is going to primarily be playing against backups. So I think that helps him a little bit. So I guess one more thing about Tristan Thompson versus Hassan Whiteside, then we could move on. For cash games on DraftKings, at least, are you looking to play one, both of them, or neither?
In cash games, I think with the news we just got, I think it's going to be both. That just hit. So I think I would probably be playing both if I were playing cash games today over on DK, but I'm not. And so it's just basically figuring out how much is too much. And I think the boom bust tool is very indicative of what we should be expecting from Hassan Whiteside right now, which is if he gets the minutes, I mean, his boom percentage is near 50%. He's just so cheap at 3,400 that if he were to get 15 minutes, I think that he's cash viable. But there, again, I just have no way of looking at that and being secure about it whatsoever. But it's definitely more secure than playing like Damian Jones or something. God, maybe Tristan would be, I will say, just for the sake of people who are playing cash, Tristan Thompson, I am secure in his minutes. Hassan Whiteside, if he gets 15 minutes, which I would have to assume he would get in this spot, at 3,400, he's just too cheap. And so it becomes a question of like, if he's going to be this low owned, maybe you don't need to play him in DK cash, but I would probably be leaning towards yes, because it gives you access to other things now.
All right. So that other piece of news that we got right there, Trey Young is officially going to be playing today. So, hey, we got all the news items in time. I mean, end of season NBA DFS, anything could happen. So definitely don't set your lineup now and walk away and be like, hey, we got it set. Cause I mean, especially after the Marcus Morris news yesterday, where I finished doing the show. I sat down to eat dinner with my brother. I took like a bite of chicken and then immediately left and was like, oh, well, time to update all my lineups again. So always in flux, but at least as of now, no real key players listed as questionable on the injury report. Like I said, we have Markieff Morris still, but that's not something that's going to change a whole lot to me. But let's dive into the Atlanta Hawks now. So with Trae Young in, what kind of interest do you have in him individually to start?
I have quite a bit of interest in Trae Young now at this point in time. 17, like, right now, I know it's like, it's a 4-game slate. So like the idea of late swap and me worrying about like missing out on the complete nuts on the back end, having like yesterday where we had 9 other games after that lock time at the 7 p.m. Eastern time. I don't really have those kind of concerns. We got the Robert Williams news, which I was curious if we were going to have to wait the entire evening for. And now it becomes a situation where Trae Young just projects out phenomenally well in a matchup now too, where you have Giannis on the other side, and it just sets up really darn well for him to be somebody who can be a big part of your lineups today. I don't know. What are you thinking about doing with Trae Young? Because I mean, what can you possibly poke a hole in for Trae Young in this spot?
Just that it's a tough matchup, and that there are a lot of other really strong pay-up options, like even for a 4-game slate. So I like Trae Young. I prefer Steph Curry. I'm just going to run my lineups right now really quick now that he's officially in. And
I mean,
I'm updated
I would too, but
Celtics
I mean,
news.
price has to be the consideration. And do we have enough value, or are we saying like Whiteside Thompson is enough value to be able to jam in all the stuff that we want in this spot? And I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit back and forth on it. And that's where I'm saying that I feel about a 2 coming into this slate on secure on who I'm going to be rostering.
I'm going to have more Steph Curry than Trae Young. That is just an absolute lock for me. I've been really high on Steph Curry recently, and it's twofold. Number one, he's playing really well lately, which great. That's fine and all. It's actually not even something I personally care about all that much. It's why he's playing really well. And I think there's actually things to take away from. Like, he's not going to hit 11 threes. He's not going to hit 9 threes every game or something like that. But there are things about Steph Curry's box scores that I think are repeatable and reasons for me to at least like him more than Trae Young tonight. Most important.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was going to say that the thing you've been talking about all week that I thought was really sharp too is just kind of like taking into account that what is happening as we get closer to the end of the season. Teams are playing for positioning, and the Warriors have a lot to play for. They don't want to waste a year of Steph Curry in his absolute prime. They don't want to have this just kind of go by the wayside. So giving him the amount of run to be able to solidify, not just avoiding the play-in game, just to kind of secure some kind of a place in the Western Conference playoffs, maybe get hot and ride Steph Curry the entire rest of the way. I thought that was a really good take you've had all week about him.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say right now. And to piggyback what you're saying, you know who also doesn't want to waste a prime year of Steph Curry? Steph Curry. Because look at the kind of minutes he's playing lately and the usage. So he's well aware of where the Warriors are in the standings. And what was said the other day after the game is Steve Kerr was asked, how come Steph Curry played more minutes? This was going back about a week and a half ago now, in a game where Steph Curry usually checks in at something like the 6 or 7 minute mark in the fourth quarter. And he came in with like 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter and played all the way through. And Steve Kerr was asked, hey, why did Steph get extra run in the fourth quarter? And he said, he asked me to. And that's basically where we're at right now. Steph Curry wants to play more minutes. He knows the Warriors are fighting for a playoff spot. And that's also popping up in his usage rate, because you look at the last handful of games, 40%, 30%, 32, 37, 34, 46, 30% usage. He's taking all the shots he can handle right now. He's doing everything he can to push the Warriors into a playoff spot. And there are reasons to buy it. Like, there's certain narratives I think are nonsense. Like, hey, this guy's playing against a team he used to play for. But when a player's fighting for a playoff spot and it's resulting in extra usage and extra playing time, that's reason for me to give somebody a higher projection. So that's why Steph Curry is my overall favorite pay-up option on the slate, and why I have more exposure to him than Trae Young.
Yeah, I think they also tried to get Wiggins and Oubre more involved in certain situations, and it's just been so inconsistent that it's like, hey, Steph, go out and shoot 23s a game. Have fun.
And yeah, so I mean, that's where I'm. So it's not really a knock on Trae Young, who right now in the latest run I did, let's see, what do I have? I have 20% Trae Young. Okay. I just have Steph Curry in more than half of my lineup for the reasons I just laid out. And then something else actually did change it with the Tristan Thompson news is now I feel like I have Tristan Thompson and Hassan Whiteside, at least on DraftKings, as 2 viable value options that I feel pretty good about, both of them, in terms of being good points per dollar plays. And that kind of enables me pretty easily to get up to Steph Curry. So that's where I'm at with Trae Young and how I compare him to a Steph Curry. But talking about some of the other plays on the Hawks, because the other news here that Danilo Gallinari's out. So with that in mind, how is that impacting any of the other plays you're looking to get to from Atlanta?
See, I think you can still get to a little bit of Kevin Huerter, nothing like irrational, but still very, very viable over on DK. Happy to be taking a couple of shots over there on him still. Well, I'm curious where his ownership will end up as we get closer to lock 2, because if he's going to be, I mean, I was assuming that I was going to get to a lot of him in the aftermath of Trae Young if you were to get ruled out. But now 5,400 over on FanDuel, I don't think I'm really going to go there when you've got Halliburton at the exact same price. Not that I'm super enthusiastic about following Halliburton after a big game there. This Wiggins thing is just really kind of being difficult for me on FanDuel. The chalkiest player at shooting guard, if you will, letting it be known for all the people who love my chalk takes. I want to be lower on Andrew Wiggins. I think it just doesn't feel very good to me, but the boom bust tool is basically indicating that I should be going the opposite direction.
You know, what's funny is earlier in the day, I was fairly high on Andrew Wiggins, but now we've had all this other value open up that, not to say it was totally unforeseen. I didn't know which players were going to be value, but I knew somebody was going to be valuable at some point. But like early in the day, I'm building my lineups and Andrew Wiggins is popping up in a fairly meaningful percentage of them. And now as I've gone on throughout the day, just as per usual this time of year, my lineups end up being more stars and scrubs. And then somebody who's kind of on the upper end of that mid-range, like an Andrew Wiggins, just ends up getting pinched a little bit. So I don't think Wiggins is unplayable or anything in cash games. I think he's so highly owned that you should certainly play him, but I'm underweight to the field in him in tournaments at this point. So I agree with you there. And I mean, who else?
Yeah. So I mean, Solomon Hill, 3,800. I don't really think is like a necessary part, but it's somebody that's going to play around 30 minutes. Wouldn't fault you if you felt like you wanted to go a different direction to find some value. Clint Capella, 8,900 is going to be more difficult. And I think his ownership should come down. He might be a guy that I manually bump a little bit. We've seen how good he's been in the aftermath of John Collins being out. And now you do have 2 centers over on DraftKings that are going to garner a little bit more of that ownership. We talked about Whiteside being solid. Tristan Thompson freaks me out, but I think is just super solid and hard to get away from in this spot. And then Clint Capella definitely has a nice ceiling still, 8,900. Trey Young being in or out didn't affect him nearly as much for me. So I think I might have to manually boost him just a tiny bit more. But Bogdanovic just basically gets taken off the board for me. I don't really see a purpose that I need to be spending 7,200 on FanDuel to try to go get him. 7,200 over at shooting guard on DK. I know he's been playing gigantic minutes, but I expect that usage, which had been around 29% and 24% his last 2 times out, sans Trey Young. I expect that to start coming down a little bit more to like that 16-19 range, which we saw against the Pelicans and the Warriors with Trey Young in. So I'm going to probably go from having a little bit of him to just about none.
Yeah, I actually like Bogdanovic a decent amount in this spot, just because the minutes have been so substantial for him. Like you said, I think the usage will come down a little bit. Playmaking, not really too much. It's not like his assist numbers have been huge lately. But when somebody's going to be on the court for that much, and also the Atlanta Hawks, a team also fighting for a playoff spot, I think he's going to continue to play somewhere in the neighborhood of like 36 to 40 minutes. And that's enough time for a guy who's been producing fantasy points at a pretty decent clip. Going to bring up his overall production for the year. He is scoring 25 and a half DraftKings points in 27 minutes per game. So, I mean, if we're going to say he plays, 36 to 40 minutes, which I think is in the cards for tonight, then, I mean, we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of, like 34, 35 DraftKings points. And to me, I think that makes him viable. He's not somebody who is in, like all my lineups or anything like that, but I am slightly overweight to the field on him right now. And it's almost solely due to the amount of minutes that I think he's going to play. So do you think his minutes take much of a downtick with Trey Young back, or do you think that's still going to be relatively secure?
No, I think that should be about what we would expect. I don't expect anything to change in like a meaningful way there. Why is he not showing up on my sheet? There it is. Okay. So I have him in for 36 minutes, grades out fine. As you said, 34 fantasy points, but 7,200, we have cheaper pieces of value. I don't mind getting to a little bit here. I will still get to a tiny bit of him probably. It just won't be even like double digits whatsoever now with Trey Young back. I think that I can target some upside in other places. I'm curious what you think about Jaylen Brown or like some of these other guys that I don't know. I was expecting somebody like Jaylen Brown to be kind of a necessary piece where people were playing him in that mid range. And it doesn't really seem like FanDuel, he's obviously garnering a bunch of ownership where you're playing too, but DK even, I feel like he's in such a good spot and nobody's rostering him really. compared to what I expected going into this slate.
Yeah, so he's in about half my lineups right now on DraftKings.
Wow.
And
look at you, you're sharp.
Let's wait to see how the slate ends before we make any bold proclamations. But so actually what impacted him a little bit for me is with Robert Williams off the court. I now assume, or Robert Williams not playing today, I assume that the Celtics are probably going to have to play more small ball lineups. And by the way, another thing I have to mention about the Celtics, at this point, I think most of us would have thought they're just cruising to a playoff spot. They're barely hanging on right now. The Celtics are, what were they, the 6th seed coming into today? They are the 5 seed, but only holding a 1.5 game lead over dropping all the way down to the 8th seed in the East. So it's a spot where the Celtics really need to win games. The Lakers, playing against the Lakers right now, could not really be too much of an easier matchup. Like everybody's out for the Lakers at the moment. So, I mean, I feel pretty good about Jaylen Brown and his matchup from that perspective. And then the other thing also, so that I was saying before with the Robert Williams thing, is now that he's out, like, yeah, Tristan Thompson, good play. He's going to start. I don't think Tristan Thompson goes out and plays 32, 34 minutes or anything like that. I think Boston is going to have to play some smaller lineups. That could mean 1 or 2 extra minutes for Jaylen Brown, who I think could end up playing, like 36, 37 minutes tonight. And if that's the case, then that's going to help him a little bit. I mean, you look at his overall, just his playing time as of late and how much they've run him out there as they fight for a playoff spot. 36 minutes, 44, 36, 41. And now you also add a key piece of the rotation out. So Jaylen Brown, I think, is going to have to play a pretty big role tonight.
Okay. Well, we are on the same, we're on the same board there. That's for sure. It's the same board. That's not right. We are on the same. What am I even trying to say? That sounded terrible coming out. We're on the same page there. The page. There it is. We found it. Samsonite. I was way off.
Yeah, that's not the Eric I know that Chris does an impression of. I thought you'd be a little sharper than that. There
I am. God, I'm just making fun of myself now. This is what it's become.
That's a lot of layers of comedy, though. You doing an impression of Spags doing an impression of you.
It's 4D chess. That's what I'm playing.
So let's see. What is the latest ownership now for Jaylen Brown? Just because we just talked about him. Hey, the ownership is free on the site, so no reason to not just.
19% is what it was last run.
All right. So 19%, that is on DraftKings. On FanDuel, I know he's going to be a little bit higher because of positionality. 28% on FanDuel. For cash games, I would certainly play Jaylen Brown. FanDuel cash, DraftKings cash, I think you can, but not a necessary piece for me. Although somebody that I do definitely like a decent amount for this slate. Let's go back to just talking about the overall positions. Now we've kind of talked about all the injury news and some of the impacts. So talking about point guards now, is there anybody we have not talked about outside of, so I was going to say, is there anybody we haven't talked about other than the guys we've talked about, but that would just kind of be redundant. So outside of Steph Curry and Trey Young, which point guards are you getting to?
I like Kemba Walker as well in this spot. So again, this game doesn't look very nice on paper by any means, but Kemba is starting to get a little bit more into the 23% usage the last 2 times out, starting to get sneakily a little bit of a ceiling back against Portland, against Minnesota. I feel as though like between him, so I'm not getting to a ton of Tatum today. And as a result, I think that I'm just kind of flooding a little bit of my Celtics exposure to Brown, to Kemba Walker. I don't know. He just sits at a price point right now where there's guys above him like Schroeder at 6,300 is garnering a bunch of ownership. We've got Trey Young now on the board here. I'm curious where he's going to show up in my next run, but sitting down there at 6,800 kind of feels like a little bit of a no man's land. I would rather go to him than Darius Garland. It just doesn't feel like a spot where I want to be firing up Garland. He just kind of fits in need for me in a lot of my positions for point guard. So I have some Steph exposure, but like rather than playing an even chalkier Dennis Schroeder, I don't see any reason why I shouldn't be going to Kemba Walker there as well in that same spot.
I have the exact same exposure to Dennis Schroeder and Kemba Walker right now. So I'm totally cool with Kemba Walker as a play. This is something else. I mean, when Robert Williams was ruled out, it was a slight bump to Kemba Walker, Jason Tatum, and Jaylen Brown for me, all 3 of them. So all guys that I got to a little bit more after the Robert Williams news. I am wondering what your take is on the tank commander himself, Payne, because it's something I talked a little bit about before with the Phoenix Suns guys, just like really briefly in passing. I don't even know if you remember me bringing it up, but this is a game where I was talking about Hassan Whiteside and how I think he could end up playing against a lot of backups. The Suns are in the middle of a stretch, or at the very start of a stretch, where they're going to be playing 9 games in 15 days. I don't think this is a game they're going to have to put out Devin Booker, Chris Paul, the starters to go out and play, 36 minutes or anything like that. They're also 12.5-point favorites the last time I looked. This isn't even necessarily predicting a blowout as much as I think the Suns could comfortably win this game, even if they only play Chris Paul and Devin Booker each, like 30, 31 minutes. And then you have to start giving those minutes to other guys, which is what I did. And then all of a sudden, Payne ends up popping up as a viable value option for me, both FanDuel and DraftKings. Really strong matchup against the Sacramento Kings. Payne has actually played reasonably well this year. He's stuck in the league for a really long time, just a guy who's on 10-day contracts, bouncing around, and just played garbage time everywhere, which is why I think of him as the tank commander. But now we have him in a spot where he's playing well, and I think he's going to have to play a little bit of an elevated role today. Did you get to Payne as I did?
I have 35% right now. The last 3 games, we've seen minutes in the low 20s. I think Alex has him at 19 and a half minutes right now. So a tiny bit of a low ball there. Those were kind of 2 of those were really out of hand, the Washington and Miami game. But even in a close game against Houston, we saw 21 minutes, 23 or 24% usage. Getting assists at a pretty high clip at the moment as well, sitting right around 1 fantasy point per minute. So 20 minutes, 3,500 gives you a different lineup construction. Also going back to the boom bust tool, somebody who is getting quite a bit of run in the optimal lineup percentage, right around 20%. His ownership is not indicative of that whatsoever. So Cameron Payne, I'm glad that you're on him too, because I thought that he was kind of one of my sneakier plays today as I was going through my process. I really like Cam Payne. I think there is the opportunity. Again, we have a 12.5-point spread and we don't sit around predicting blowout, but I think even at 3,500, he's not going to completely bury your lineups with 20 minutes of run. And there's upside for more in a blowout. So you're basically leveling him in 1 fantasy point per minute. I'm projecting him right around 20. So there's the upside for 24, 25 minutes. I really like Cam Payne in this spot.
Yeah, and I mean, also some of this is just a result of this being a smaller 4-game slate, because I only have Cam Payne projected for 19.5 fantasy points on DraftKings. That's still enough to get him to pop up at a meaningful amount at a 3,500 price tag, because he lets me get to some of these guys I'm looking to pay up for on the slate. So Cam Payne, I don't think he has to do all that much to end up being optimal on a 4-game slate. He'd be a different play if this was a 6 or 7-game slate where we had a whole bunch of value plays. The other thing also, the value plays we do have, Tristan Thompson, Hassan Whiteside, they're both centers. So there aren't that many guard value plays that are all that reliable. So that's where Cam Payne fits in for me. Any other guards we have not yet talked about that you'd like to bring up?
No, I think that's about right. Devin Booker, I'm not on whatsoever, which sounds disgusting to say against Sacramento. I thought that would be a place that I would be getting to, but it's just a 9K price tag. We talked a little bit about the blowout risk, which I try never to go crazy with. I'm under the field on DK. I'm way under over on FanDuel. What do you think about Devin Booker? Because that's just not somebody that I'm getting to in any kind of meaningful way. And against Sacramento, it just kind of feels counterintuitive.
No, I agree with that. I have 0% exposure to Devin Booker right now. In the Boom Bust article I did earlier, I wrote him up as a bust of the day. And by the way, I could just be wrong about the minutes, right? So all this stuff correlates together. The reason I like Cam Payne is the same reason I don't like Devin Booker. It's the same reason I don't really like Chris Paul in the slate, although I like Chris Paul more than Devin Booker. But it's just that I don't think the Suns are going to have to roll out their starters to play their full workloads in what should be a pretty winnable game against the Kings. Favored by 12 points, tail end of a back-to-back for Sacramento. And it's just such a brutal stretch of games coming up for Phoenix that I think that they would be wise to give any sort of break to these guys at any point they can. So if this is a game they could win pretty comfortably without killing their guys, then I think that's what they go ahead and do tonight and really try to save them for upcoming games against like the Clippers, the 76ers games coming up. Those are really important games for the Suns in the standings. And this one, I don't really think they have to kill everybody. So but if I'm just totally wrong on the minutes here, then it's going to collapse all my lineups, right? Because then all of a sudden Devin Booker goes off, and Payne himself isn't viable. So it kind of falls apart like a house of cards if I'm not on the money there. But how did you get to Devin Booker at all for this slate, or are you like me where you didn't roster him?
So I have 40 lineups over on FanDuel. I've got 200 over on DK. I have him in 4% over on DK right now. I had 5%. So basically in, what would that be? 4 lineups over on FanDuel. So nothing meaningful whatsoever. I get the tournament aspect of it being a pivot if it were, but it's just not. So he's getting near 25% ownership over on FanDuel. Again, we have ownership that's free today. So feel happy throwing that out there. That's way too big of a number. Even though shooting guard isn't like my favorite position on earth today, I think that there's better ways to go about it this slate.
All right. So now moving over to the shooting guards, at least to the exposure I have on DraftKings, we've kind of already hit on all of these guys. Shooting guards, Jaylen Brown is my most rostered shooting guard on DraftKings. Then I have exposure to Bogdanovich, Marcus Smart. I have exposure to Wiggins, but I'm pretty significantly underweight to the field on him. Colin Sexton is somebody who's in my player pool. I'm a little hesitant with his playing time just because I don't know they're going to go out and give him massive minutes. The other thing also is that we have a somewhat healthy Cleveland Cavaliers team, which we haven't seen all season. Like we haven't seen a situation where they've had Kevin Love out there, Jared Allen, Colin Sexton, Darius Garland. Do you think that all of these guys being healthy is going to meaningfully impact the production we see from Sexton?
Yes. I mean, I don't think that there's a way that it wouldn't affect him a little bit. I mean, Love is a completely different monster. We haven't seen Love and Sexton really that much this season. So I think that I think for the most part, I'm kind of tempering expectations on each of them. I said, I really don't feel like there's a need to have to go to Sexton in like a meaningful way on this slate. Again, my shooting guard exposure, God, that's the problem though, is that I just don't feel phenomenal about Andrew Wiggins in any way, shape or form. I'm just going to trust the math, trust Alex on this one. Because I think that just becomes a big part of on FanDuel with Sexton. But, yeah, I think over on DraftKings, there's not really a reason that I have to get there. It's a little bit more, even on a 4-gamer here. I'm starting to get a little bit more stars and scrubsy, and I don't really find a need to get to Sexton.
All right, guys, we are about halfway through the show. There's no need for money time. Number one, I'm not here to infringe on anybody's bits. I'm not going to take Spags' thing away from, but also the ownership's free, I said. So also, we don't need a hawk for likes for the purpose of just giving away ownership because it's already there. But still, guys, go ahead and like the video. Maybe we give away ownership for free more often if we get more likes. But also, if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the YouTube channel so you know when it is that we're going to go live. Let's come with a little alternative here. All right, let's instead of money time, let's call it honey time. All right, and we're going to go with
Jordan's face is like, what?
Which player with less than 10% ownership on FanDuel and DraftKings do you think is most likely to end in the optimal lineup? We're going to call it honey time for no reason other than it rhymes with money time.
This sucks. This guy's at 14%. And yeah, so I got to go a little bit lower. I was going to throw Juan Toscano-Anderson into the mix. That's somebody that I'm a little bit higher on if we're talking about under 10. I mean, I don't even know who it would be. Who do I have the most of? I mean, I've got quite a bit of Halliburton, even on DK at 6,400. I'm over the field there, not by much, but a little bit. I would say the most likely guy who would end up optimal under 10% on DK. Can we say? Yeah, I'll go Tristan Thompson for sure. Right now he's under 10%. Why is that?
Yeah, I guess people, I mean, we also have we haven't seen an ownership update in about 20 minutes. So that could potentially be it.
Yeah, I would say with
Thompson
that right now, Tristan Thompson is the guy. He's right now coming in under 10. I expect that to shoot to the moon a little bit. Who are you kind of going to? Give me a time to look through this.
Yeah, so Tristan Thompson is the guy who I have the most exposure to right now. But since we're in the middle of talking about guards, somebody who have a little bit of exposure to extreme boom or bust play, but Lou Williams, he's priced at 5,000 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Lou Williams is priced at 4,400, where he also has a little bit more ownership. But at least if we're just talking about DraftKings, Lou Williams at 5,000. If you tell me he scores 15 fantasy points tonight, not surprised. You tell me he scores 35 fantasy points tonight, I'm not surprised. So Lou Williams, a guy who, especially because this is a game against the Milwaukee Bucks team, it's going to be tough sledding for Atlanta to win this game outright. But one of the ways that I think they do stand a good chance of winning is, number one, if just Trey Young is a massive Trey Young game and just gets super hot and hits everything, or Lou Williams could do something similar like that off the bench. So just based on his upside, I think that he's somebody under 10% outside of Tristan Thompson, who I don't actually think is under 10%. Lou Williams, somebody who I think has potential to be a low-owned guy that's a big difference maker.
I'm going to go Solomon Hill on the other side of that, under 10% right now, playing 31 minutes. He's at a price point at 3,800 where I could see him. We've seen it 3 of the last 5 games where he's kind of jumped into 24, 25. If nobody else in that range, like around small forward, really goes off, I could see him sneaking into an optimal. So maybe that would end up being the guy for me.
And then FanDuel.
Not that I like him, but it's like the most likely to be optimal. I would say that would be pretty close for me.
I think there's a pretty easy answer on FanDuel. Hassan Whiteside, a lot more expensive on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, but at only 5% ownership on FanDuel, Hassan Whiteside also, if he's gonna, we've seen him have the potential for go out. He took. Remember, there was the Hassan Whiteside night that ruined your evening when we were DMing that one time.
Yep.
But
you mean when I was winning the 100K for like 3 hours and then 100 Hassan Whiteside lineups when he played 24 minutes and went for 64 past me? Yeah, I do remember that night.
Yeah, I thought you might remember it. I thought there was a chance you'd recall it. But anyway, the point is being that Hassan Whiteside could have massive upside. He doesn't even have to play 30 minutes. Like there's a chance you get 22 minutes out of Hassan Whiteside where he blocks a bunch of shots and scores 2 fantasy points per minute. So to me, 5% ownership on Whiteside is much too low in GPPs.
Yep, I agree. I mean, that's just way, way, way too low. And I think Alex is showing you how low that is. Grading out phenomenally well. 7% right now in the last round of ownership. I think we're going to see some of that ownership going towards Tristan. I think on FanDuel at 5K, if I'm going to still get a lower on Hassan Whiteside, I think that's a good place to just kind of stay the course and be on Hassan over there.
All right. I feel only marginal returns from Honey Time, but you know what? I like the concept. I feel like I was somewhat able to steal from Spags while still staying somewhat original, and we got some information out there. So I like those guys as GPP plays anyway. But let's move on to the small forward position now. The guys who I am currently picking up the most amount of exposure to, one of them being Jaylen Brown on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Already talked about him, also shooting guard eligibility on DK. Kent Bazemore is somebody who I've been fairly high on as a value play in spots over the last week. I think this is another spot to go to Kent Bazemore. Fairly decent price point, at least on DraftKings. He's a different play on DK versus FanDuel, but at a sub 5,000 price tag on DraftKings, especially where I find it somewhat difficult to find cheap small forwards though on a roster. Kent Bazemore, somebody's popping up in a decent amount of my lineups. Do you feel the same about Kent Bazemore, or do you feel the price tag is about fair now?
No, I think it's still there's still some room to get on top of it. I have no problem going to Kent Bazemore at 4,900, under 5K there. Been in the starting lineup here. Had a nice streak of games for the last 5. Only played 21 last night, which is actually I think a good thing for his profile tonight, where he's still going to probably be playing into the 30-minute mark. So long as this stays somewhat close. I think that the blowout definitely helped for me, like in Curry. I have no issue about Curry with his minutes whatsoever. No issue for Bazemore too. They just kind of ran them out of the gym in OKC last night. I like going that direction. Mikal Bridges, I think it's kind of a product of this slate at 5K as well. You kind of need a couple of these punts in that mid like 5K range as it is. Harrison Barnes, I was getting to quite a bit earlier. He was at 6,300. I actually nuked up Jaylen Brown even a little bit more. So I'm getting to just over 50% of Jaylen Brown. And then Pat Connaughton is somebody that in the last round, I didn't really expect to be getting to whatsoever. And I don't know why he's there right now. But I mean, he must have seen a little bit of a bump. Maybe it's just the product of also making a bunch of lineups. Yeah, I'm going to cap him because that is not right to have 17% of him. I'm going to cap him at 5 because I don't really have the time to do anything else.
By the way, so small forward related question. We did get something in our premium Slack chat from Swanson79. He asked us, could Mikal Bridges be in a great spot? Might be a little biased here because he does have a Suns logo as his avatar and asking a question about Mikal Bridges. But I have Mikal Bridges in 20% of my lineups right now. I am a little bit concerned about the overall workload of the Suns starters in this game, but at least on DraftKings, Bridges has been priced way down to 5,000. We've seen him priced generally 5,500 or higher over the last month. And then I think the real reason his price came down is he just is coming off his worst game of the season, where he played 20 minutes and had no stats other than 1 rebound against the Heat. So that led to a little bit of a depressed price, but at least when he's on the court, really favorable matchup against the Kings and the salary's down. So Mikal Bridges is somebody that I'm getting to. How about you?
Yeah, Mikal Bridges. Yeah, I just said that I liked him, kind of a product of the slate. Also, don't put into chat that Pat Connaughton's out. These are fake things, and I will not tolerate them today. Not in the mood for people spamming the chat with fake news. I know that Dante DiVincenzo and Pat Connaughton get confused, perhaps, or something. Maybe you misread something, but definitely Pat Connaughton's in.
Yeah. And by the way, to reiterate, Dante DiVincenzo is out, and I think that could maybe have people confused, or there could just be no good Knicks in the YouTube chat who are out to spread misinformation. But we do have a question here related to Dante DiVincenzo from Yowdingley in our premium Slack chat. One part of this you've already answered. He said, any love for Pat Connaughton or Brook Lopez on FanDuel? Pretty funny that he would ask that question as you were trying to take Pat Connaughton out of your lineups, but Brook Lopez is not somebody that I'm getting to. And it's not even to say that he can't see an uptick in production without DiVincenzo there, although I don't really think they're that correlated. But there's just much better center plays on the slate to me.
I am curious because Alex doesn't completely hate Brook Lopez. I mean, 27.5 minutes. We know that he can spike a 3-point upside. The big problem, like 4,800, him in that price range, you can go cheaper to Tristan, have a little bit more security. You can go up to Whiteside, I think, have a little bit more ceiling. Brook Lopez, not a guy that, like last game, 23 minutes went completely nuts against Minnesota, but that's also Minnesota. Generally gets there in like 3-pointers. He had 4 stocks in that game. That's a large number. I think, if you're embracing the variance of center and saying that somebody's going to get 4 or 5 stocks on any given night, and that's kind of the FanDuel way, sure, go ahead and take some shots on him there, but he's gaining more ownership than Hassan Whiteside, and I just kind of think that's wrong.
All right, so I wonder if this is what people could be thinking. Pat Connaughton is not starting tonight, and that seems to be what at least what one person is saying. I didn't take it to mean that, but no, Pat Connaughton is not starting. But I mean, the other thing also is, like, why would we have expected Pat Connaughton to start anyway?
Right.
Like, even with Giannis out last game, he didn't start. So I don't like, there was no point where I would think that so over under saying he's out of starting lineup. He had been starting games for Milwaukee. No, he started games, but he didn't start last game. He started one game against Orlando when there was multiple guys out, but no, Pat Connaughton's generally not been starting for them. Let's see, other small forwards. I think we've kind of hit on, I have a pretty condensed player pool today, to be honest. So we've kind of hit on most of the small forwards that I have exposure to. Is there anybody that you have that we have not mentioned yet?
I'm sorry, my buddy just texted me Grant Williams, or who did he just say? What? No, I see. This is what's always fun for me is like when my buddies text me and like they're like either watching the show. Hi, Thomas, if you're watching right now, don't play Grant Williams. I'm not doing such things. And he only builds like 3 or 4 lineups too. So that really kind of like freaks me out a little bit. If you're willing to like burn $4 or $20 if you're playing in that to try to win 100K, sure, play Grant Williams, but not for me.
Yeah,
that's the last small forward to bring up. That's just irrational. There you go.
I also do not have exposure to Grant Williams. There's a chance he'll start, but let me just bring up Grant Williams. I don't know exactly what the numbers are off the top of my head. I do know that he is an extremely poor fantasy producer.
I'm aware of that one.
I'm going to bring up the exact numbers here just so I could bring up. Like, Grant Williams scores like half a fantasy point per minute. So you have to give Grant Williams a lot of playing time for him to become viable. So Grant Williams this year, he's playing 19 minutes per game and averaging 11.3 DraftKings points. For the season, he's made 8 starts. How many fantasy points would you guess he's averaging in those 8 starts?
11.
11.9. You shorted him a little bit, but not too much. You're very, very close.
Thank you.
That's a win as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely. That's a win. That's going to be your biggest win of the day. I hope not, except I hope not, but I don't know. This is going to be a wonky slate. All right. We do have a super chat here from Ruben Mitchell, and this is a forward related question. This could actually be a good transition for us to start talking about the power forwards. He's asking Crowder or Saric for FanDuel single entry.
I mean, I think Saric is kind of interesting for FanDuel. A little bit cheaper, I believe, than Jay Crowder over there, correct? I think Saric probably, if you were to get like foul trouble for Ayton for some reason, if it ends up being a blowout, you could see a big Saric game at a lower price. I think Crowder, let me pull up what the ownership is, because again, that is free today, so definitely take advantage. Yeah, Jay Crowder's coming in around 17%, and Dario Saric, oh wow, Dario's actually around 13%. In that event, I'm going to go Jay Crowder. I just think that the minutes are a little bit more secure. We know the 3-point upside that can exist. You're trying to target a ceiling there. I'll go Jay Crowder.
And then, hey, another power forward related question here from D Niz. He's asking us, is it okay to fade Giannis in high dollar single entry DraftKings? It is for me. I have a lot of concerns about how many minutes Giannis is actually going to play coming off this knee injury. So I got to Steph Curry. I got to some exposure to Trey Young. I paid up for a lot of guys before I got to Giannis. I have some Giannis exposure, except it's right around 10%, I think was the number for me.
Mm-hmm. Also, by the way, is Jock Market closing at, do they have the lock at 4:30 because there's only 4 games? I guess we should probably know that.
You and your silly West Coast time. Yeah,
it is. Check it out here.
7:30 Eastern time is when the Jock
I'm gonna
closes.
put myself a bid or two in here as well as we're going along. So I want to be able to talk about a couple of these guys. So I'm pulling up the page, and so continue talking here. I just want to give a shout out to our guys at Jock Market.
Well, I'll address the super chat here first. So I have 10% exposure to Giannis. I have absolutely no qualms with fading him in a single entry GPP. I'd rather pay up for Trey Young. I'd rather pay up for Steph Curry. And there's a whole bunch of value in the front court today. So I think that makes Giannis not really an essential play. We have another super chat here from Noah DeComis. I almost certainly did not pronounce that right. But there's no question here. So I don't know if you just meant to leave us a super chat with no question. If that's the case, thank you. But if you did mean to ask a question, then at me so I know what the question is going to be, and then I could answer whatever question you have. And by the way, Eric, who himself just went over the Jock Market and put some bids on players, you could do the same thing. Go download the Jock Market app at your app store, Google Play Store, whatever the app store is for the phone you use. And also, if you want to make a deposit, use the promo code Awesemo20. That will give you a $20 bonus on your first deposit. And then if you look at the IPO price and go, hey, I don't know what the fair price is to bid on any of these guys, good news, we got you covered. Go to Awesemo.com and we have fair IPO projections for anybody who goes to Awesemo.com. They're free for everybody. So you go check that out. Good way to get started. And that is Awesemo20 for a $20 bonus on your first deposit. So power forwards, we answered some of the questions there relating to them. But what did you do with Giannis for today?
I'm getting over the field. So I'm at 35% Giannis. Again, I think that just in terms of how I'm looking at this slate, I think that we have enough value with Tristan and Hassan Whiteside that I'm going to roll the dice, because if you get 32 minutes of Giannis, that's a lot of raw points on a 4-game slate to be getting into your lineup. Somebody produces at the highest rate in the league, 1.7 fantasy points per minute. Obviously, there are concerns. Like I'm very aware of the concerns, but I think that that's baked into the ownership right now over on DK. We're not getting above 21.2% right now. That just feels a little bit low for a 4-gamer. You look at the rest of the power forward position, like Jason Tatum projects out much lower. And again, I'm kind of going the other directions with some of those Celtics pieces. I do like Kevin Love quite a bit, getting just a bit above the field over there as well. But Giannis, I think, just has such a crazy amount of upside. And on a 4-gamer, that could be if he gets to 30. Now, if he plays 25, can he still get to 50? Sure. But I'm probably in a lot of trouble there. But I guess I feel pretty good about the fact that if they are rolling him out there, they're not going to roll him out there less than 100% at this point in time. Their goal is not to just get a great seed. We've seen that that's just not something that works for them. Their goal is to be healthy. So if they're going to roll out Giannis tonight, I'm assuming that he's good to go just about 100%, more than just about anybody else in the league.
All right, we got another super chat here from Corey Dime. But it says message retracted. So
thanks for the $1.
Yeah, I don't know if that means one of us deleted it or it means if he deleted it. I don't know. I don't know what the implications of that are. But Corey Dime, if you have a question, definitely feel free. Like our other friend Noah, who also left us a super chat with no question, at me and ask the question if there's something you wanted to have answered. Other than that, other power forward. Oh, he did ask us a question? By the way, was anybody able to hear you when you read that, or was that just us hearing you? All right, so Jordan read off the question. I'm still not sure what the question is, though.
Oh, the 6K tier. Okay, 6K tier of DraftKings. I talked a little bit about Kemba Walker. Like him at 6K, or like in the 6K range. He's up the upper end at 6,800. He's playing tiers. Tiers at the 6 in the tier range. Ooh, this is actually a fun question. I'll pull it up here. Keep going, Greg.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna read off the next super chat here because if I had to answer that question right now, I would leave him in tiers. I have no clue who any of the players are in tiers. I can't remember. When's the last time you pulled up a tiers contest on DraftKings?
It's been a minute. It's been a real minute. Now I am gonna play a tiers lineup though.
All right. Hey, we got
for tomorrow.
I found here's the question that Noah wanted to ask us. He asked, last in for a FanDuel GPP, Taurean Prince, Mikal Bridges, or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That is Mikal Bridges for me by a pretty wide margin.
Same.
So, all right.
Same.
So we got that answered.
Okay. So tier 6, we've got Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, Marcus Smart, Kevin Love, and Isaiah Hartenstein. So Hartenstein's off the board. You're not playing him today. Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, Marcus Smart. You know what? I'm going to go down to Kevin Love. I'll put Kevin Love in there. No. Man, this is fun. Play Kevin Love.
Okay. I would agree with that, by the way. Just hearing those names off the top of my head, Kevin Love is a guy that I have some exposure to today and don't really like most of the other guys that are there. Here we have a question from Omar Armandarez. Help me, Sexton or Fox tonight? I mean, if you're just in between those two guys and nothing else matters, it is Fox.
Yes, but that's that's not an either or last man in question because you're leaving $1 zillion on the table. But definitely Fox.
All right, here's a name that I know that I am going to be able to pronounce correctly. Sean Lewis.
Hey!
Long-time viewer. Thanks for the support. I'm going Curry and Giannis tonight. Okay, no question there. Just telling us that he's rostering Steph Curry and Giannis. Good by me.
That changes everything that I'm doing. That changes
everything. I have, like I said, I only have 10% exposure to Giannis, but Curry's in more than half my lineups today. So I have absolutely no issue having him in there. And I assume that based on my other exposure, there's a good chance that some of my Giannis lineups have Steph Curry in them. I think that covers all the super chats. So let's quickly go over to the center position now. I feel like we've kind of encapsulated a lot of it just by talking about how much we like guys like Hassan Whiteside and Tristan Thompson. What other centers, if any, are you getting to a meaningful amount given how much value we have on those guys?
Andre Drummond. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. But I think Andre Drummond, you also are taking Robert Williams, a high energy dude, and you're putting crusty Tristan Thompson out there to play meaningful minutes. Andre Drummond, if you can't go off in this spot tonight and win me a tournament on DraftKings, I swear to all that is holy, my guy. I live in Los Angeles. I will come and just scold you and, tell you that you should be better. That's what I'll do. That's about as mean as I can get.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll promise to never play you, and then I'll play you again the next slate because that's
exactly what I'll do. I'm well over the field on Drummond on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel, it's a more interesting question because we do have Whiteside, who I'm getting to right around 30% of my lineups. I've got Tristan Thompson in 10. I've got Andre Drummond in 25, and I'm thinking about just taking 5% of my 10% Clint Capella and moving that down to him here. I think that's about all the center exposure that I'm going to be having on this slate. Jared Allen is a curious guy that I wanted to get your take on because I'm curious why he's getting right now around 13% of ownership, coming off of an injury, played last night. I just didn't think that I'm shocked he's playing, but that's just me. What do you think about Jared Allen?
So I didn't get exposure to him, but it's also just because of how much I like some of the cheaper centers. So I do have some exposure to Andre Drummond, but not a really high priority play for me. Really the high priority plays for me at center tonight are Hassan Whiteside and Tristan Thompson. And with those guys being center viable, it's hard and as good of values as they are to me, it's hard for me to say that like, hey, I want to get a bunch of Clint Capella, I want to get a bunch of Jared Allen and just a whole bunch of other guys because I really like Hassan Whiteside and Tristan Thompson center plays today. And then I just only have so many spots left for other players to roster. So with that in mind, I don't really have anybody else that I've really attached myself to. I have 10% exposure to Clint Capella. I have Kevon Looney in a few lineups, but the bulk of my center exposure goes to Thompson and Whiteside.
Okay. Love it.
Are they your two highest owned centers?
Yes.
Okay. So we are on the same page there. All right, so we've got
Thompson is not my highest on FanDuel. Sorry, he's my third. I go Drummond in the second. Did you say?
Okay.
Did you say Whiteside Thompson 1-2?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So I have Thompson third out of those on FanDuel. Just to clarify.
Which center are you not rostering that you think has the best chance to just blow up the slate?
Kevon Looney, that would be the guy. I don't have a ton of him right now. I don't really find a need to go that direction when I have the upside of Whiteside that can exist for a tournament. Like I just don't love Looney in this spot. Curious what your answer is too, but he's the guy that could just ruin my day.
So for me, I mean, I have some exposure to Looney. I have some exposure to Drummond. It's probably actually DeAndre Ayton. He's going for really low ownership right now. I actually think all things considered, if I was playing more lineups for this slate, I might have gotten to DeAndre Ayton, but I'm only playing 20 lineups. So Ayton doesn't really have that much ownership. Also favorable price point on both FanDuel and DraftKings. He's played overall better as of late. It's a really positive matchup against the Kings. Like I said, one of the issues I have with just everybody on the Suns is that I don't think that the starters are going to be needed to play their full allotment of minutes to win this game, and they have a really brutal stretch of schedule coming up. Now, if I am just way off on that, then I'm going to be off on everybody on the Suns today. I'm going to be wrong on Booker. I'm going to be wrong on Chris Paul. I'm going to be wrong on Ayton. I'm going to be wrong on Bridges. Payne, who we talked about earlier, I'll be wrong on him. So it just all goes hand in hand. So that's why Ayton is the center that I think is most likely to break the slate that I don't have exposure to.
Love it.
Let's see. Do we have any other? Nope. Looks like we got all of the super chats out of the way. I'm going to check a premium Slack chat to see if we have any questions there. And all right, we actually have a bunch here that we could hit on right before lock.
Let's do it.
So let's just rapid fire some of these. Bazemore, Lou Williams, or Connaughton and Bridges?
The first one.
All right. From Iron Maiden 2, Curry and Crowder, or Trae Young and Kevin Love. That's actually going to be Trae Young and Kevin Love for me.
Same.
Mr. Moneybags, Kemba and Bridges, or Schroeder and Herter?
Kemba and Bridges.
All right.
Between Payne and Caruso, go Payne. Go Payne. There's more upside with Payne.
For sure. I have no exposure to Alex Caruso today. I do have exposure to Payne, so easy enough for me to say to get exposure to Payne. From Cuban A, Smart, Sexton, or Wiggins? That would still be Wiggins for me of those three guys. How about for you?
Agreed.
All right. Bazemore or THT? Bazemore. Let's see. What else? I think that gets to all of the at least recent questions. The other ones go farther back, and I think held less relevance now. But anyway, we're at lock. So guys, Eric and I not going anywhere. Next 30 minutes, we're going to be talking about Jock Market. What is Jock Market? Well, this is just another way to play daily fantasy sports. We're viewing all the individual players as if they are stocks. The IPO period where you bid on the players and try to get actual exposure to them in your lineups, or not lineups, but overall get exposure to them in your portfolio. We'll call it that, right? I'm trying to seem like
Jordan wants to ring the bell. Yeah, I can feel it. We made eye contact. It was perfect.
You know what I just realized though? That really sounds more like a train.
It's fantastic. It does sound like a train. Like if you ever see like the closing bell on like CNBC or something, it definitely sounds like a train. Yeah, it's a bell.
But it's a different kind of bell. Like when at like the stock exchange, they don't run that. It's not a train bell. It's a different bell. Like it is a different.
It's a big bell.
Yeah, but it is a different. It doesn't have like the alarmingness of like, hey, here's the bell because we might run you over. It's like, hey, like right, we're about to make some money, guys. Like let's get excited. It's not.
No, it's the end of the day. It's the end of the day.
But anyway, guys, here's what I should be playing on Jock Market. For one, you get a nice deposit bonus if you go sign up right now. Download the Jock Market app. Use the promo code Awesemo20. You get a $20 bonus on your first deposit. Even if you want to play for free, there are free contests. So if you want to just dip your toes in the water, check out what it's all about. You go do that as well. So, all right, let's talk about some of the Jock Market here. I have not been able to open it up yet to see if I actually won bids on anybody. But Eric, did you end up with shares of any players?
No, because I kept getting outbid, which is great because I'm glad everybody's taking place and doing all the things. I had Payne going the whole time, and then somebody outbid me at like the very, very last second. But we got live trading here, so we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna find a couple guys to utilize on some value. We just have the one game locking now. So Milwaukee, Atlanta, I'm actually going to pull that up on my iPad so we can watch as that's going down. Nick Solak home run. Welcome to the big, I love you so much, Nick Solak. But anywho, I'm going towards, I'm curious for this next game, who we might be looking at getting based on some of these other pieces. So we have Giannis going at the top end for Milwaukee, Atlanta, Capella and Trae Young. Those are 3 of the 4 highest owned guys right now, or 3 of the 4 most expensive guys for ask prices right now on Jock Market. If you had to bid on one right now before the beginning of that game, who would you go and get?
Let me just pull up. By the way, I did not win bids on anybody. It's hard to pay attention to that while I'm also trying to host a show. Also, something else I mentioned, because you mentioned Nick Solak homering, it is worth mentioning Jock Market. Not only do they have NBA, but they also have PGA, they have MLB, they have NHL. So also, if you could have had exposure to Nick Solak on the Jock Market today. All right, I have this open now, though. What was your question about which players?
So we've got Giannis, Capella, and Young that are all about to get going here. For me, I still think that I would roll the dice on getting to a little bit of Giannis. Even, I mean, 1608 is a big number, but I think he definitely has the upside to be the $25 winner at the end of the night. First place gets to $25 a share. So I still think that there's a nice $9 bit of room to go up to Giannis. But curious if you liked him, Capella, or Young in terms of like as we start reacting to the game as it's going on.
I have a lot of concerns about the upside of Giannis today, just because of him coming off the layoff. Also, like, what does this game really matter to the Bucks? They're pretty secure, being one of the top 3 seeds in the Eastern Conference. And so let's see, when's the last time Giannis actually played? I only gave him 30 minutes tonight. Giannis last played April 2nd
ago. Yeah.
So it's been almost exactly 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that kind of long layoff, I do have concerns like how much are they going to have Giannis go out and play? By the way, I was able to just now go and get shares of Steph Curry, who I thought was going for a little bit lower than he should have. But talking about Giannis, we do have a fair IPO projection for him of $18.30. And there is an ask for him right now at $16.08. So at least according to Alex's projections, which are free on Awesemo.com, you are able to get a little bit of value based on that on Giannis.
Yep, I'm going to go get a share right now.
So like I said, the ask on him is $16.08. So the ask on Steph Curry was almost the exact same, $16.11. So I got 2 shares of Steph Curry at $16.11. According to our projections, the fair IPO price of Steph Curry is $16.80. And I also knew that I was a little bit higher on Curry than Alex was for this slate. So that also led me to think like, hey, if I was actually projecting out what I thought the fair IPO prices would be, I would probably have Giannis and Curry flipped. So that was something that had me jumping on Steph Curry there. So
don't do that. He might get hurt.
Which
you might jump on him. Don't jump on him.
No, I don't weigh that much. It wouldn't be an issue.
It's a dad joke. Typical Eric Lindquist dad joke. Womp, womp, womp.
If only this, that would have been good if we had Tyler sound effects here. I don't want to make Jordan.
I was gonna say, I don't even know where did he even go. Where did Jordan go? That's an awesome view, by the way, in the background there. I don't know where he's at, but that's very lovely.
Yeah,
it looks like he's in. Yeah, very sunlit room.
I don't want to give out any top secret information. People show up at Jordan's door. Yeah, there's crazy people on the internet. Who knows, right? He muted somebody once or something. Somebody shows up and they're like, hey, you muted me. And the guy's just, face pressed against the window in the back of his place.
You ruined my life with that 300-second timeout. Whatever. Oh my gosh, that whole Washington game's going nuts too. So yeah, MLB, fantastic for the Jock Market as well. I think just the high variance of baseball makes it really, really exciting to be able to target some certain guys. Like you don't have to necessarily go to Mike Trout. Basketball, we know how predictable, or within a certain realm, it's much more predictable. It's less variance than something like baseball. And you have a game right now where if you were to stack up the Washington Nationals, Arizona Diamondbacks, and have both sides of that, and have some pieces on Jock Market, you'd be a happy boy or girl. Either way.
Yeah,
Hi, Leslie.
Happy person. You'd be a happy person. So we've got, by the way, the score of that game, it is 4-3 in the first inning already.
It's just insanity. I was just seeing that. That's great. I went 100% Urias on FanDuel just because I was like, screw it. It's one of the nice things about doing shows is you just kind of like spiritually free roll certain guys where you're like, well, screw it. I'm not going to play this guy or that guy. I'm just going to roll out 10, 15 lineups and whatever happens, happens.
By the way, according to John, who's pretty regularly in our YouTube chat, he did say that the Hawks are closing in on the Bucks if they lose this game, but I mean, not really. The Bucks are holding a 4.5 game lead over Atlanta, and there's only 17 games left in the season. That's a whole lot of ground to make up in a short period of time. Like, I think the Bucks at a minimum are going to be the 3 seed in the East and could potentially move up to the 1 if everything was to break right. I don't think that's likely, but I think the 3 seed is probably the floor for them, and I don't think they really care that much about seeding. I think the playoffs have been such a disaster for them lately. And also they had, last year Giannis got hurt in the playoffs. And so I think that it's going to be a really big priority for them to make sure that everybody's healthy heading into the playoffs. So
I agree. But here's the thing. So you take that information and you make your assumptions. For me, I think that what point would you have of having Giannis go out there whatsoever if he's not 100% to face Atlanta? Like, I would have to assume he's nearly at, I'm assuming he's basically a full go. Not saying that he's going to get a full allotment of 35, 36, 37 minutes like we had started to see, kind of a contrary to like Budenholzer's past, but 32 minutes is still enough for Giannis to be optimal, I think, on this slate. But that's just something that I was willing to take a roll and just be a little bit over the field on.
Yeah, so the other thing about Giannis and you saying why would they play him if he's not healthy? I agree. I do think he's healthy. But at the same time, there's a difference between having him play at less than 100% or building him back up and going out there and saying like, hey, we're going to give Giannis 30 minutes as opposed to 34, 35, 36. So,
all right, that's fair too.
Giannis is a great points per minute fantasy producer. Like I said, I have him in 10% of my lineups is what I finished with. It's not like I have none of him or anything like that, but I found it really hard for me to be confident to give him a massive amount of minutes and get him to a whole bunch of my lineups, especially when I really liked Steph Curry on the slate. And I like Trey Young more than Giannis for
just got a little bit of leverage as well. I mean, he was coming in around 20%, 23.5% optimal in the boom bust as well. So for me, it just felt like something where being slightly overweight felt all right by me and being slightly underweight for you felt fine by you. And I think there's definitely a middle ground that exists by just being at the field on the guy. But anywho, we are back to Jock Market.
All right, let's look at some of the guys who were chalk plays that some people have stuck around the chat, probably likely have exposure to. Some guys maybe we've talked about a decent amount today. Hassan Whiteside. Let's see what is the asking price on Hassan Whiteside right now?
$8.95 right now.
A little steep.
But if 8 and 12 with 3 blocks, that would be useful. That would be very, very useful. The nice thing about centers too on Jock Market, they don't tend to have a bunch of those missed shots that can accumulate for a guy like Wiggins, can accumulate for a guy like Booker. Booker's pretty efficient, but still at the same time can go out and miss 10, 12 shots. Those are worth -0.5. So keep that in mind as well. Somebody like Draymond becomes a little bit more of a priority. If I were in there before the closing bell, if you were getting any kind of a situation where it was like of equal weight, Draymond Green or Devin Booker, if they were like at the exact same price, I would be prioritizing Draymond Green because he doesn't tend to shoot that much anyway.
All right. Let's see. Whiteside. Yeah, that was a pretty steep price.
Yeah.
What are the other Kings, if there's other of the backups in here? Like, what is Damian Jones listed?
That's kind of what I was thinking about.
More expensive than I want to pay for him. We have but we do a fair IPO price for him of $2.10. The ask on right now is $2.15, so that's about fair. And hey, fair is not good enough. I want more than fair. I want something that's advantageous in my position. So
agreed.
Nothing for Damian Jones for me. Let's see some other of the popular plays today. What about Tristan Thompson? Let's see. We had a fair IPO projection for Tristan Thompson at $4.40. But Tristan Thompson ask of $6.25. That is a little rich for me. If I was to overpay for a center, let's say I had to overpay for a center, if somebody came, they broke in my door, or they broke into Jordan's apartment behind him, right? They break into Jordan's apartment. They say, hey, we're going to off your producer unless you overpay for Hassan Whiteside or Tristan Thompson. Which are you going to? I would go to Hassan Whiteside in that situation personally. How about you,
I
Eric?
would agree, but also that was one fantastic analogy. That was great.
Yeah, I don't know how likely that scenario is, but I think the point here is that I view Hassan Whiteside as having more upside than Tristan Thompson. I don't want to stake Jordan's life on Hassan Whiteside, but if we're really trying to break the bank here and really climb up the leaderboards on a jock market with one of our individual plays, I think Hassan Whiteside more likely to have that big ceiling than Tristan Thompson does, and then we'd have enough money to pay off Jordan's ransom.
I would agree. Yeah.
Jordan's about to leave again.
He's like, I'm so over this crap.
Let's see. Other guys. Steph Curry, like I said, I have exposure to him now. The ask is now 17-11, so I feel pretty good about getting in on him at 16-11. If I wanted to make a quick buck, I could undercut the market and sell him for like 17 and be like, hey, look, make $2 on my Steph Curry shares without risking anything. But
you could, but you also want that 25. That number one spot. That looks, that's more than doable. I'm curious. Kevon Looney, $4.40 for a fair IPO price. That is much higher than I was expecting it to be for Kevon Looney.
Yeah, I kind of, by the way, as long as we're talking about Looney, James Wiseman was just ruled out for the season. I mean, we weren't expecting to play tonight anyway, so that doesn't really have any correlation to this particular DFS slate. But going forward, I think they're going to need Looney to play a fairly significant role. So bring up his recent box scores. By the way,
he had a 31-minute game as well, which was kind of intriguing just for fantasy purposes. But I kind of felt like going other directions at center today. I didn't feel it was like a necessity to be going to him anymore once we got Tristan Thompson.
Him playing on the tail end of a back-to-back is a little bit of a concern for me. He's in my player pool, but if this wasn't a back-to-back at his price point, I actually probably would have had him as like a core play for me. He only had to play 22 minutes yesterday, except, he's been a guy, if you look at the recent back-to-backs, the 9th and the 10th, the Warriors played consecutive games. He played 19 and 22 minutes. Earlier back-to-backs, he played 21 and 9 minutes. So I have Looney in my player pool, and it is a little different now because Wiseman's out, so we should expect more minutes for him, but I'm a little concerned about the playing time upside for him, or else I would have had him in like 50% of my lineups or something like that on DraftKings. But what was the ask price right now on Looney?
It was high. When I just scrolled by it, I was looking at Kemba.
594
is a gigantic number. That's $1.50 more than the fair IPO. Not saying that he couldn't get there by any means, but I'm going to pass. What is Kemba going at? Kemba's down there at $8.99. What was his fair? $8.99. He's $8.10. I'm going to get 2 shares of Kemba here quick. I still think that there's a little bit of room for that to go over. Right now, suggested price on there, $7.12, and then $8.10 fair number. I'm just going to get the $8.99 and see if I can't just get 2 shares because I think there's a lot of upside for Kemba tonight.
All right. Cardiac Kemba, I don't mind it. The $8.99 is probably a little steep for me, but I don't think it's egregious either. I'm going to scroll through, see what other of these prices look off. I'm curious to see if there's anybody who looks like they might have much more upside than what the current ask price suggests. By the way, something of interest here, talking about the Suns guys who, I mean, you had said before you were trying to bid on Campaign, weren't able to get any shares of him. If the Suns guys, everybody was expecting to play full minutes, Devin Booker would be going for a lot more than an ask of 1165. Yes. Devin Booker not really looking like a popular target on the jock market. And I think that's also a lot of people who are a little concerned about his playing time in this matchup. Because, I mean, if we were to get 36 minutes out of Devin Booker against the Kings, I would expect him to be one of the higher scoring players on the slate. I just don't think that's the most likely outcome.
God, this is so annoying. It's 4:45 out here, 7:45 your time. How is that game not started yet? How's the Milwaukee-Atlanta game not started? I know it's a TNT game tonight, but like, what are we doing that we can't get that game to like go remotely close to any start time? Just say that it starts at, 7:45. Just do that.
Yeah, if nothing else, we would have players in game to talk about that we would like to bid on if they were off to hotter or cold starts. But yeah, I mean, the games, they never start on time. By the way, the game just tipped off. We are 4 seconds into the game now.
Okay, there you go.
Giannis hit a shot on
just
first
behind
possession.
you. All right, there he came back from commercial. Cool. It's so Giannis bucket right off the bat. That's fun.
Yep.
So he got there. It's game over.
So
Start spamming the chat. Yeah. Giannis or no Giannis, no money.
Let's see. Is that changing his asking price or anything? Still $16.98 as the ask price for him. So if you buy into Giannis's hot start with 2 fantasy points in the first minute of the game, there you go. You could bid on Giannis's prices. Not yet skyrocketed.
All right, Kevin Hoarder, settle down now. Giannis night. 1 bucket. That's all you need out of Giannis tonight.
Hey, and then Bogdanovich with a rebound and an assist on a Solomon Hill 3.
Oh my dear God, make it stop. Solomon Hill 3. That's enjoyable. That's actually decent. Said he could be sneakily optimal. Somebody who plays 31 minutes for can just run into some accidental stats. I didn't necessarily expect 3-pointer there, but Clint Capella bucket, Bogdanovich assist. Nice little start for Atlanta here.
By the way, people don't notice this because Jordan's off camera, but he has been kidnapped, and the kidnapper's saying the only way that he'll let Jordan go is if we get to 700 likes on YouTube. So, and if you guys really care about Jordan, please like the video because yeah, I mean these guys look rough. Like I mean one of the guys looks like he's almost 6 feet tall or something like that. Like Jordan can't deal with that. These guys are they're tying him up now. Just like the video. Just if you don't like the video, this is going to be the last time Jordan.
No.
Yeah. No. Oh my God. Oh no, he's going to need that. Don't cut it off.
No. Oh, his beautiful face. No. And we also have to pay for surgical implants. So you should probably super chat while you're at it. Oh no. Oh no. He's dead. He's dead.
Yeah, that's not, but you should still like the video anyway.
Rip Jordan.
Yeah.
Somebody just said they're slamming bottles of wine. How did they know that?
He posted in the YouTube chat.
Oh, he did. Oh,
yeah.
That.
Yeah, you guys should subscribe also because Jordan would have wanted that. That's where his final, final wishes. Let's see who else is. Let's look at some of the prices for the guys who are off to quick starts in Atlanta. Most notably,
Bogdanovich is going nuts.
Well, he's got 2 assists and a rebound. So let's see what is that doing to his. Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah,
so
he's flying. I'm gonna take a look. 11.20 now. That's where he's at.
Well, that's pretty steep.
Yep.
We had the fair IPO price for him coming in was $7.80. So now, accounting for the hot start, what are we expecting? Somewhere maybe like $9 would be the fair IPO price. So a little rich. I think some people like to overreact in the DFS community a little bit, and they go and do crazy stuff like kidnap producer Jordan, which maybe it's somebody who didn't play Bogdanovich and they saw him hit that 3, and they're like, Jordan, we've had enough.
Yeah, Poor Jordan. Yeah, Bogdanovich. I'm trying to figure out also what lineups, because again, he was not somebody that I was super high on today. I'm just trying to manually adjust a couple things while I'm going, see if there's anything good with him from the get-go. And Solomon Hill assisted on that, so that's nifty. He's already up to a quick 4.5. So we're
by the way, we do have a Fargo guy in our premium Slack chat. He did say that he has a little bit of exposure to Marcus Smart at $5.51. So I think that's a pretty good buy. I mean, Marcus Smart, we've projected for a fair IPO price of $6.40. So yeah, about $1 under what we had at fair market value. So I think that is I think that's a good purchase there.
It's a great call.
See which guys are struggling to start this game that could be in a spot for a bounce back.
Trey Young is nothing right now. 0 for 2, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
How has that impacted his asking price?
It usually takes like until the timeouts is kind of what I've realized. People at timeouts start panicking and maybe try to sell him a little bit low. He's dropped down to 8 there. He's still $12.85. Fair IPO price right now. What's $13.20 is the ask on it there.
That's a little rich.
Yeah, we're gonna wait for Trey Young to maybe pick up. $12.90 was his optimal number there. He's now down to $12.85. I think his start is a little bit less than 5 cents. Not to overreact or something, but yeah, Trey Young, no money. Yeah, that's not true.
So Trey Young, like you said, we had a projected fair IPO price of $12.90. The other thing to consider too is that missed shots are negative fantasy points on the jock market. So Trey Young's going to get -1 fantasy points on the jock market. That is suboptimal for 4 minutes into the game.
Not great.
No, not the best. Not the best. The only guy having a worse night than Trey Young is Jordan, who guys, come on, you don't have to put his clothes on. Like, look, he's
dude.
He's
what are they doing?
Yeah, it's like, you know what they're doing right now? It's have you ever seen the Office where they're doing the CPR lessons and he cuts off the dummy's face and wears it on his own face? That's what they're doing to Jordan right now. Which I mean, hey, that's a little much. They're just taunting us now. But I don't know if you noticed this though. The kidnappers are really good at producing.
They are. They basically were just giving us they're like, we're good, we're still good. It's like we're just doing our job too. So they're I mean, that's got to be a weird day job where it's just like you're working for a mafioso or something, and it's like that would be just an interesting day job to have. I don't think I would be signing up for that one.
No, but Mr. Kidnapper, if you could pick up Jordan's phone, DM me on Slack and tell me your credentials, because you're doing a pretty good job producing, and we need a new producer now. So I think we might have.
The picture quality's better. The sound effects came in because I mean it happened right when the bell chimed in. They were like, "Oh, we need to hit that," and then it actually happened as opposed to the 2-minute delay. Oh, thank you.
Oh,
yep. See, hey, you're doing great over there. You're doing great.
Yeah, he's found the sound buttons. Let's see other guys starting in the later games. Let's talk about some of the other chalk plays for the DraftKings and FanDuel slates and where they might fit into the jock market. Let's look at somebody like Kent Bazemore. Bazemore, a fairly popular play. He's been starting in place of Kelly Oubre. What is the
540 right now is his fair IPO price. 598. Again, that's not like overly egregious for pregame, but you could probably wait on it. Like if he gets off to a hot start, try to jump in and buy it right away. That 598 number before it changes. I think that's probably the best way. Just kind of watch the first 2-3 minutes of that game, just like we are right now with Bogdanovich. But the thing about Bogdanovich is somebody was very attentive and jacked up his price super quick.
How long until Trey Young has positive fantasy points on Jock Market? We are now 4 minutes and 50 seconds into the game, and he is at -1 fantasy points.
It's not ideal. 3 missed shots. He's at -1.5, I think.
Oh, yeah. So he just missed another shot.
Yeah, he's 0 for 3.
Yeah, he should consider making some of them.
Honestly, that's like a good idea. I think it's his job to make it as opposed to what he's doing. But
it's his jab.
Trey Egg, yes. Rock latex. What a screen name.
Let's see. The Warriors game is about to start. If you had to, I'm not going to bring Jordan into this again, but if you had to pick one guy to bid on right now from the Warriors game, could be either side of the game. That game starts in 6 minutes. Who would be the one guy you think is the most reasonable asking price?
It might be Bazemore, actually. I mean, Draymond Green, I talked about a little bit. What's his fair IPO? Because
his ask is really high, though.
Yeah, it's over $10. That's going to be tough to get to. Ask price of $11.75. Doesn't have to shoot the ball basically at all to get there fantasy wise. So you don't have the 7, 8, 9 missed shots that you could have in that situation. Bazemore is probably it. He's only about 40, 50 cents more than what his fair asking price was at. And then Steph Curry definitely has the ceiling to get to 25. So if you're feeling it's not even being risky, he's up to $18 for an ask price. Again, you could lock in your profit right now. But I think you're feeling the $25 upcoming. You're feeling a 65 burger out of him. And then you're gonna definitely want Steph Curry.
Yeah, Steph Curry is going to be the highest scoring player on the slate. I'm saying it right now. No hesitation for me. And I feel even better about it because Giannis and Trey Young are off the slow starts. But yeah, Steph Curry. That's also something else to consider too about maybe some of the jock market strategy is we have, really 3 really high priced DFS options in terms of like traditional DFS and Giannis, Steph Curry, and Trey Young, at least guys with, really massive, significant upside. I guess we could throw De'Aaron Fox into that mix also. 2 of these guys already in Giannis and Trey Young are off to slow starts. So obviously we're only halfway through the first quarter, but I do think that in itself does boost the overall odds of Steph Curry being the top scoring player on the slate. So
definitely,
if you roster Steph Curry, it is something to feel good about at this point in the game. Although actually Giannis just hit a couple of shots, but even so, it's not like he's lighting the world on fire there.
He's going to.
4 minutes left. What is? Oh, you know what? Here's something we could talk about. Markieff Morris is questionable to play. Something we never really had to talk about all that much during the slate. Yeah. But let's say Markieff Morris gets ruled out right now. Which players would you be looking to potentially maybe match the asking price of and get a couple shares of?
I mean, Kuzma would make the most sense right now. Getting a ask price of $6 on him. We know the kind of upside that can exist. I am worried about Drummond being there to affect his rebounding rate, but right now, fair IPO price of $5.50 on him. Ask price of just under $6. I think I would be happy to get to a little bit of him there. I think some of those other pieces on the Lakers might not be nearly as affected by it. Like, would you be looking at Taylor Horton-Tucker more? No, I probably wouldn't. Maybe, yeah, I think it would basically be Kuzma or bust for me in that situation. What say you?
I would give a little bit of boost to Taylor Horton-Tucker. Right now we have a fair IPO projection for him of $3, and right now his ask is $3.35. So if there was no Markieff Morris, if we would be giving THT a couple extra minutes in that scenario, I think that would make him a viable value. And oh, by the way, we do have a super chat here from Colin M. He just wants to know Jordan's home address and his mother's maiden name.
What's the maiden name? We can give the maiden name.
Yeah, no problem. And also DM me on Twitter. I'll give you his social security number as well, which I think that should have everything covered. No problem. By the way, I am making
6739.
I am for sure making sure I have an alibi everywhere I go over the next week. If nothing else, I know Eric will cover for me. He's a ride or die.
Yep, that's me. Just absolute ride or die. It's because you've been so nice to me over the course of all these shows that I'm just, I've been feeling it's about time that I gave back to you for all of your kind words and sayings to me.
It's going to be bad when Jordan goes missing and Eric just goes, I have not seen Greg in months. I don't know where he was last I saw him. He said he was heading over to Jordan's and I just haven't heard of him since.
Yeah, I think he was right there in the background. We pre-recorded this on Zoom, predicting the entire slate, and you're already there. That was the next level con.
Yeah, see, this is what happens when you work yourself into a corner. You got to be nice to everybody, guys. Treat others the way you want to be treated, for sure. By the way, we did get a
it's so funny lineup coming from you. That's so good.
Starting lineup for the Warriors: Steph Curry, Kent Bazemore, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, Kevin Looney. So no real surprises there.
Same thing.
And perfect. Let's see. Let's get some updates here on the
18-15 right now. We got Pat Connaughton just entering now. Brook Lopez is going completely nuts. He's got 8 and 5. He's the leading scorer of the game right now. They just took Giannis off like they normally do in the middle. So I'm kind of curious what's going to happen to his shares, because it's not going to look great. He always comes in at the beginning of the second quarter. So don't overreact. If you have Giannis shares, let it be known.
All right, and that is just about going to bring us to the end of the show. I will point out Trey Young. We are 7 minutes into the game. Still negative fantasy points on the Jock market. He did pick up an assist, but he's missed another shot. So negative fantasy points for him, but he's inching towards the positive numbers, which is really what we like to see there. But guys, that is going to do it for today's show. If you want to check out Jock Market, follow along with Eric and I. We're going to be doing the same thing next Thursday. We do it every Thursday. Go download the Jock Market app in your app store. Download the app, and also make your first deposit. Use the promo code Awesemo20. Get a $20 bonus on your first deposit. So good luck tonight, guys, and rest in peace, Jordan.
Oh.
Rest in pieces now, though.
Mwahaha.